You better be in the house when them street lights come on. Ain't that what your mama used to tell you? But I bet you when she told you to stay out the streets, she had no idea that the YouTube streets would take over the world. Uncle Juice, Public Figure Boogie, Baby Down So Raw, Detroit Gossip, and the most dangerous voice in Detroit, DawgfaceTV.
Bitch, I talk more shit than Dawgface.
They running shit from coast to coast. Welcome to the Danger Zone.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. My name is Dawgface Calderon. This is DawgfaceTV Unleashed, aka Real Life Unfiltered. Hey, listen, I want to welcome everybody. I always say that each episode is a special episode, but this is an especially. This episode should be called Put Belt to Ass, right? We got a bunch of people on YouTube claiming to be legal experts. We have a bunch of people on YouTube who have these on Clubhouse who they assemble these people who claim to be expert on this, a paralegal on that, and they have legal talk to legal. But I want you motherfuckers to Google the name Todd R. Perkins. From a federal level to the state level, from civil to criminal, from sports to entertainment. He is that. He's been there. He's done that. And he just saved my ass, pause, last May in a courtroom in Macomb County, Michigan. So when people would say, hey, we got legal. No, you don't have legal, right? If you have legal, bring legal to the motherfucking table. Bring legal and let's see legal's face. Let's see if he gonna smile at you or he gonna look at you like this. Let's see if he has love for you or if he thinks this about you.
You big dummy. You big dummy. You big dummy. You big cold-blooded dummy. You big dummy. See what you did?
Because most of you niggas, if y'all had lawyers, the lawyers can't wait to get the fuck away from you stupid ass niggas. But my lawyer, Mr. Perkins, we talk on a frequent basis. He advises me about all the dumb ass shit I be doing. He's like, don't do that shit right there. I ain't got time to come get your ass out of jail for that. Don't do that. Stop this. Todd R. Perkins is in the building. What's happening, Mr. Perkins?
What's going on? Happy Saturday night to y'all. Sitting over here in Chi-Town.
Oh, you in the Chi?
Yeah.
You better get some of that Harold's chicken and then waffles.
You know, I've had that before, but I tried this Italian joint over on West Grand. Friend of mine who just got out here, who's gave me some good advice. He's a lifelong Chi-Town guy, so I'm taking advice from a person who's organic.
That's the best thing you could possibly do. In the lower, so we got to guess first. In the lower left-hand quadrant, if you think people don't like me, if you think people have a problem with me in the stuff I say, then y'all don't know Mr. Byron Blake. Mr. Byron Blake, welcome to the motherfucking.
What's up, man? I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Hey, listen, the pleasure is all ours. It's a pleasure. It was hard getting in contact with you, brother. You ain't to eat. I was able to get in contact with Obama before I was able to get in contact with you. I don't know what the fuck you got going on over there.
Man, gotta keep the screens up. You know, it's treacherous out here in these YouTube streets, man.
It is. Hey, and in the middle, Mr. Ball Scraper himself. None other than my dog, my brother from another mother, Underdog. What's happening with you, brother?
What up, bro? UnderdawgTV in the building, bro. Appreciate it, man.
No doubt. And listen, the Grand Chancellor, the number one stunner on the YouTube streets, Ruler Report. What's happening, gang?
What's going on with you, Dawgface? You already know what it is, man. We coming to cook up tonight, man. We ain't coming to play no games. We ain't coming over here to run some fake narratives with paperwork. We got a legal expert. We got a brother that does his due diligence in researching paperwork and breaking it down, man. And, you know, We got Dawgface in the building. You already know what he gonna do in the homie underdog, man. I'm ready to get it in. I'm ready.
Before we start, Cornelius Martin, thank you for the $2 donation. I didn't have no gas. I got here by the skin of my teeth. That $2 gonna get me back home. So I appreciate you. And Slime, thank you for them jewels. They add up because you know Papa need brand new shoes and a sweatshirt. Like he said, Ruler Gang, this is your show tonight. This
Man,
your show.
Hey, listen. I really want to get this. I want to really get to it because there's a lot of talk about a lot of different people's cases. We got a lot of people giving a lot of different narratives about federal plea agreements, right? And I think this is going to be a teachable moment for a lot of people in the content space, as well as people who watch content creators, right? And people want to break down paperwork. They want to say, well, hey, this person took this plea, this wording says this, so that means they're telling, right? So I just want to get a full breakdown from either one of you brothers. Byron, you can go first, or Mr. Perkins, you can go. Whichever one of y'all want to grab this. But can you break down how a federal plea agreement goes?
I'll go second.
All right.
If y'all want me to clean it up and ask it a little better, look. Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
I'm not an attorney, you know what I'm saying? So I can't get to how a plea agreement goes in the, courtroom sense, but I can, like you said, get right to it and what we talking about in this topic, right? My thing is this. Once you take a plea, regardless of whose circumstance we talking about, once you go in there and you plead guilty to, for example, how we talking about this plea agreement where this dude admitting to moving drugs and moving cars with money in them and stuff like that. My stance is, wow, you may not have an agreement to cooperate, testify, so to speak, cooperate. You still provide information that may be able to be used from an investigative standpoint, because they know now. If this dude's saying he want to go to trial, you taking this plea and admitting to what you admitting to could further the investigation in a way, While I also feel like when they take these pleas, right, and they admit to all of this different stuff, one of the safeguards to not testifying on the Fifth Amendment, people say I plead the Fifth, it's the right against self-incrimination. Once you plead out to running these drugs, moving these cars with this money in it or whatever, I feel that you remove your right against, you remove your right to plead the Fifth in that moment. If they decide that whether you agree to testify or not, once they subpoena you, and they got the right to subpoena you, once they subpoena you, you get up there and you could say I plead the Fifth, but I'm pretty sure any prosecutor will be trying to argue against that, saying, well, he already pleaded guilty to this and admitted to these facts. So there is no self-incrimination. And that's just my standpoint on it. But that's part of the reason why we're here tonight, because I want to hear it from a legal expert too, what he feel about it.
He's got it right in a lot of respects. I look at it two ways. It's how the streets perceive it. Meaning, when I say the streets, I mean just regular people. They see when they look at this plea agreement, they see that he's talking about BMF. They see he's talking about all these kilos being moved in and out of cars, money being moved in and out of cars, giving a factual basis. But he's not agreeing that will be used and can be used against those other co-defendants who still have cases that have to be tried. He's not agreeing to that. So I don't know. I couldn't see anywhere in there that he had, and I didn't look far enough. I just looked at the plea agreement. I wasn't involved in the case. In fact, I was saying before we got started, I remember I was in court on a minor. Well, I don't think any case that comes into federal court is minor, but not nearly as severe or
it's the situation they were in.
Than they were in. But I was in that court that day when they were being brought in, and I didn't know these guys. I had probably seen them before just because I'm a Detroiter, and they were Detroit, in and out of Detroit. Mostly they had been not in Detroit as much, and more so in St. Louis and in Atlanta at the time. So, but again, I can't say from Chad Brown's, or they call him J-Bo, right?
Yes, sir.
That he cooperated, because his plea agreement cannot be used against those co-defendants, because what happens is those co-defendants would not have a right of confrontation unless he agreed, I'm going to come into court and I'm going to testify against these guys. Now, that doesn't mean that plea agreement is not the substance of things that have been built up over the course of the investigation in which he provided information. But if he's given a plea agreement around April of 2007, by that time, the case had been going on almost 2 years. By the time he took that plea, they knew everything they needed to know. Now, there are probably some nuances that they didn't know, but what he said in that plea agreement, I don't think is anything that the government didn't know at that point. He got a substantial sentence. And, you look at the sentence that people get sometimes, and that's how you kind of sort of extrapolate from that to determine whether or not, did he get a benefit from getting this sentence? I think the benefit that he got was they reduced some of the counts, but they, a lot of times they're just looking to pair these people off because he's a guy, we're going to give him some time, that he's not the guy that we really, really want. We want these people over here. And so from what I saw, I couldn't say that this guy is a cooperating individual. But again, there's the factual basis in the plea, but that factual basis cannot be used in the case in chief against those other people. But what it can be used for the purposes of, let's say, for instance, I wanted to just take a plea. I'm going to plead guilty to the charges in the crime, and without a factual basis, if the court would allow me to do that. What happens is, if I wanted to help my co-defendants later on, even though I've pled guilty, even though I've been sentenced, I could say, no, this was not what happened. They could probably call me and say, this is not what happened. And sometimes they put this factual basis in there to prevent them from being used at a later point to help other co-defendants who might otherwise choose to go to trial. Ultimately, the primary and the most significant defendants in this particular case didn't go to trial. They took pleas, and everybody got, who were higher up, everybody got substantial sentences in this case. And, even if it was today, I would think that those individuals wouldn't have gotten the sentences that they got. There's a different kind of component. There's a different spirit about punishment and justice system. So,
guys,
the guidelines.
Poetic Flocka was in the building. What's up, Flock? That's my little big brother in the building. Shout out to Poetic Flocka was in the building. Hey, listen. So let's get right to it. So here's what we have, and let me go widescreen so that we can all come to some type of understanding here. What we have here, what's on the floor here, it is Deon Cuffy Gatlin. Deon Cuffy Gatlin, he had a case, right? And we're not even gonna get into the whole Big Meech, Tammy Collins. We're not even gonna get into that. What we're gonna talk about is right now, Wack 100 is leading a charge on YouTube and on social media saying that he pled guilty, and in his guilty plea, during his allocution, he acknowledged and accepted responsibility for things that had other people's names in it. And he's trying to say, because he, during his allocution in his guilty plea hearing, where the judge read off the different elements of the crimes that he was pleading guilty to, when he was reading the circumstances and the elements of what he was pleading guilty to on each count, it mentioned other people's names. So Wack is saying because he mentioned, or because other people's names are mentioned in his allocution, that means that he's saying that somebody else is guilty, or because he acknowledged it or accepted it during his allocution, he's saying that means that Deon Cuffy Gatlin told on the people whose name are mentioned in his allocution. And
I could respond to that if you want.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Okay, so I don't know much about this individual. I think you sent that to me earlier this week. I was in trial. But right. I can tell you this. It's the same thing that I was telling Mr. Blake. The fact that if I took a plea agreement and I said certain people do certain things, number one, something, it's kind of like if you ever do any federal cases, and federal cases, by the time they come talk to any people, they know 95 to 99% of the answers. They just want to know, if they ask you a question, are you going to lie about it? That's all they're asking for. And then they may need witnesses in order to pull things together, in order to promote and convince other people to take a plea or not go to trial and things like that. That's kind of like the sum and substance of what happened. For Mr. Gatlin to say what other people did, that can't be used in other people's case in chief unless Mr. Gatlin is going to step up and say, okay, I'm willing to come to court, you know what I'm saying, and raise my right hand and testify in open court, because that's just a statement. Number one, it's hearsay. Number two, for that to be used against someone else, it violates their right to confrontation. And so they can't confront what somebody else said. So imagine going to trial and all these people say all this venomous shit about you, and you go to trial and you can't counteract it because you can't cross-examine the person who's actually saying it. That would be a violation of anybody's constitutional rights to do just basic due process. So therefore, him saying that in a form of a plea agreement, I don't look at it as cooperation. I look at it as a man that's putting things to rest as it relates to, his own business. But again, it's not like, let's stress it all the way down. It ain't like these people don't already know what happened. They just need to put the pieces together to get somebody to testify to it. It's my understanding Mr. Gatlin hasn't come into open court and raised his right hand to testify to that.
No.
And since he hasn't testified to that, I can't, from a legal perspective, consider him a cooperating individual or, in the street terms, a snitch.
Gotcha. Hey, Estes KD2, thank you for the $10 donation. I appreciate you, brother. So listen, it is important to frame what we're about to say, because you have so many people who operate in this space who present themselves as experts in this, that, or the third. And I'm not blaming anybody, because some people just know more than others. Some people, they know about legal shit because they have been caught up in legal shit. So they learn about the law and they learned about jurisprudence by default because they've been locked up. So they have to learn. They have to get it. And just because you've been locked up does not qualify you. I know some niggas locked up dumb as a box of fucking rocks. Don't know shit. Never been to the law library a day in their life. All niggas doing is playing Tonk, Space, and 21.
But I also know a lot of people have been locked up. I got a guy who's been locked up 57 years. As soon as he got out, I hired him. I mean, he knows. I mean, he can communicate with brothers. Number one, here's the thing. If I'm going to represent people who are in the joint or headed to the joint, why would I not have somebody who's been there who can give me, number one, give me street cred with the guys, right? And then if I'm going to be about it, I got to be about it. And why would I hold that against him? Because he did 57 years. He more understands what's going on in there than I do. Every time I go to the prison, I get to come home.
Yeah. Hey, I need y'all to like, share, and subscribe to this. Tell everybody Doggy Dog is in the building. Hey, listen, we finna go up top with all things BMF, all things Whack 100. Byron Blake is in the building. The legal genius of Todd R. Perkins is in the building. Underdog is in the building. Ruler Gang is in the building. Ruler Gang been spanking ass up and down the YouTube streets over the last, shocked the shit out of me. I'm proud of this brother. I'm going to give him an award. I'm going to send him $100 donation to buy him a pork chop.
No pork. No pork.
A pork chop.
No, black folk love pork chops. You hear me? So listen. So what we have here, and I know Poetic Flacco is tuned in. So Flacco, I'm talking to you, Flacco. This is important to you. Flacco, I want you to meet Mr. Todd R. Perkins. You can Google his name. It'll pop up. He's qualified and eligible to practice law in multiple states. When you call somebody from Detroit and elsewhere, but specifically from Detroit, which is where he hails from, and you ask them, what does the name Todd Perkins mean? It means, that's like synonymous with some Johnny Cochran ass shit. Some Mark Garagos ass shit. So watch this. So people are saying that, hey, Cuffy, when you pled guilty during your allocution at your plea hearing, when the judge was reading off, because what you're reading is the transcripts, right? You don't have the actual audio. So let's assume this. Let's turn this transcript into audio. What you're hearing is the judge read. So what happens is they took a paragraph from a greater document which was his plea agreement,
and summarize it.
And they summarized it. They isolated one paragraph where it says, Mr. Gatlin acknowledges and accepts that this person did this, and this. They took one paragraph from a greater document and tried to present that to the world as if that meant that is a representation of him cooperating. They snatched the paragraph out of it, trying to trick and to deceive the public into just accepting that cropped out paragraph as if that was law, case law, and if that was a representation in totality of what the fuck took place. And I'm not saying Flacco did that, but Flacco was provided this information by Wackesha, right? And I'm going to keep it like that, right? So listen, if Cuffy pleading guilty and during his guilty plea, during the hearing, he's allocuting. Mr. Perkins, can you explain to us during the guilty plea hearing or process, what does the term allocute mean? And when you're taking a guilty plea, when the judge is asking you or pointing out certain aspects, elements of the case, if you say no during the allocution, what does that trigger?
Okay. Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So allocution is just a point in time in which you get an opportunity to say, speak on terms, prior to the judge sentencing you. The judge says, basically, do you have anything to say about these offenses to which you pled guilty to? And you get an opportunity to speak from asking him to look at equities about your life, asking him to look at it from your perspective, to look at the various different things and the intricacies of what, as intricate as the crime may have been, because at that point, you're no longer saying it's an allegation. You've pled guilty to a crime. So don't run from that. Now, whatever you say and whomever you may say was involved, that can't be used against another person in their trial. But now, at the end of the day, we're all human. Let's say oftentimes in a situation where you have, let's use the BMF situation. You had a judge like Avon Cohn. Avon Cohn presided over all those defendants. I think it was maybe 29 or 30, maybe even more defendants. And he was presided over all those individuals. So he understood when people came before him, he had that knowledge of what other people had said about him, even though it may not have been part of their record. It still was in his mindset. It was still in his mind as he was fashioning a sentence for the person that's in front of him. Now, that's
what I was speaking on, saying the investigative aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it may not be able to go onto the official record, but like you said, now he has this knowledge, and it's the same with law enforcement. They may have some other information that they had 2 years prior, but once you go in and admit to it, now they have something that they can use. Okay, we can take this. He admitted to this. Let's go back and double check these phone records, or
Let me say this. Let me chime in if I may. So listen, we're talking about at a plea hearing where you are acknowledging and accepting.
No, sentencing. You're talking about sentencing.
So no. Go back, not sentencing. A step forward at the plea hearing. Okay. At your plea hearing where you allocute, where the judge is lifting up. So there's a difference between the sentencing and the sentencing is you already pled guilty, right? You take your plea. If you're going to take a plea, right, in the case, you're not going to trial, take a plea. You're going to have a plea hearing first where you plead guilty. And then your sentencing could happen the same day or it can be off in the future sometime, depending on what the situation is. I'm specifically talking about at your plea hearing. When you plead guilty, you have to allocute. The judge has to be satisfied that you are accepting responsibility for the crimes, and you have to acknowledge and accept responsibility for it, or the judge will not accept your guilty plea. If you say, hey, no, I don't agree with that part, or I don't agree with that part, I ain't pleading guilty to this, that, and the third. First of all, once you get to a plea hearing, you've already come to an understanding with the prosecutor and the judge and the defense attorney. They've already come to an understanding about what you're willing to. Okay, I got 6 crimes. I just shot a motherfucker, slapped a nigga, punched the nigga, and gouged the nigga eye out.
Right.
So what we're gonna do is, because we ain't got time for this shit, you're gonna plead guilty, save us the expense of taking your dumb ass to trial. So I tell you what, we're gonna give you 10 years for shooting the motherfucker and throw all the rest of that shit out. So what you're pleading to, the judge is going to ask you about all the elements of the crime of the shooting, because everything else has been dismissed or thrown out, right? Because you're pleading guilty to this one offense. When you plead guilty at your plea hearing, you have to allocute, and allocution means, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have to acknowledge the elements of the crime that you're pleading guilty to, and you're accepting responsibility for it at the same time. The judge is going to read off, hey, this, and this. On this day, on September 3rd, 1947, blah, blah, you did, in fact, possess a firearm on Cedar Grove and 6 Mile and or on Harper and Gratiot, right, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And you did illegally discharge the firearm into said car, and you did strike Wackesha on the side of his booty, and therefore that constitutes a felonious assault with the blah, blah, blah. So my thing is, when you allocute, the judge is going to ask you about, and he's going to say, hey, listen, he's going to ask you about the cases. Do you agree? Yes, I do. You acknowledge that? Yes, I do. And he's going to ask you, have you been promised anything outside of what the court has accepted in its own record, right? Because there are things that you can be promised, like not to go outside the guidelines, or you may have a deal where they're going to sentence you below the guidelines or something like that. So the judge already knows that. So when the judge, have you been promised anything outside of the purview of the court, right? And when you say yes to all that, when you allocute and you say yes to the elements of the crime, does that mean that you, and if somebody else is a part of said crime but not pleading guilty with you, are you then throwing that person under the bus if that crime has other people charged with the same thing? If you plead guilty before I plead guilty, does that mean?
I get it. And what I got from what Mr. Perkins was saying, and he can, correct me if I'm wrong.
He was talking about sentencing. He was talking about sentencing.
But even with the plea aspect, right? Once you take the plea, there are, like you say, somebody else is still fighting the case. So now this person comes in front of this judge who accepted your plea, and this judge now has knowledge, predetermined knowledge of what it is his role was or whatever, based on the things that you said in your plea. So even though it's not on the record, that you incriminating him, the judge still has knowledge of that. And if he's dealing with a case like the BMF case, where it's a bunch of people, 20-some people, as these people come in, he has a better understanding of the case and what that person's role might have been all the way up until you get to the top. The difference, I think, in Cuffy's situation is Cuffy was at the top. You see what I'm saying? So him taking a plea is saying, yeah, we did this. More than likely, when you got somebody at the top of a situation like that, they already done told everybody else, hey, look, I'm going to get out of here, and then you can go ahead and do your thing. Him taking that plea opened the door for the people who came behind him to say, yeah, I took this plea. I got orders from him. You know what I mean? It's almost like he subjected himself to being able to be blamed for it, if you look at it like that. Whereas in J-Bo's situation, he was still trying to fight, and I want to hear your take on the subpoena aspect. Like, once they take the plea, can they be subpoenaed? Even if they don't agree to testify, can the prosecution still subpoena them and try to force, them to speak or testify to just the part that they already admitted to in the factual basis? What's your take on that as far as pleading the fifth in a situation like that?
Well, here's the thing. That's a good question. That's something that's a marvelous question. And here's the thing. If, let's say, for instance, I'm J-Bo, or Chad Brown is his name, and I get sentenced to 188 months, and you serve a subpoena on me to testify in these other individuals' crimes, in these other individuals' trials in which they're alleged to have committed these crimes, which I have even admitted so much, maybe not names, but I admitted the organization, I admitted what I did, I admitted some of the circumstances, which are clearly similar to what the allegations are against those 2 or 3 lead defendants. I'm going to tell you to take a flying kite out of here because I'm getting ready to do 188 months. It's nothing you can do with that subpoena to force me to testify. Technically, you could, because I no longer have a right against self-incrimination because I've incriminated myself by a guilty plea. But the only thing you could do is ask the court to hold me in contempt up to a year. But, you know, who's going to waste their time in doing that and, you know, really look from the, you know, the public chimes in on a lot of these cases, even more so now. You know, it's like
with social media and everything.
Yeah, look at this. It's Saturday night, and I'm looking at this chat stream. It's hundreds of people chiming in on this thing. You know what I'm saying? So that has the effect of influence on how, you know, government officials operate, how they work, and even so much even back then when social media wasn't as effective as it is now as relaying information to the general public. So technically, yeah, they could issue a subpoena, but of what effect it would mean, it'd be a nullity. It would not have any effect. I'm getting ready to do 15 years and 8 months. I mean, what the hell y'all gonna do?
But that's coming from a stand-up perspective. You know what I'm saying?
And
some of these guys,
some
of these guys, they like shit. I don't even want to get that contempt. I don't want to get that extra year for contempt.
But it's gonna get concurrent. It's gonna be served concurrently.
So, no, I get what you saying 100%.
So if I'm gonna be a snitch, I'm gonna get something for it. So you 5K1 me my ass, or you rule 35 my ass and give me some reduction. If I'm not gonna get that, then you know I'm gonna give them the finger.
Okay, so hold on for a second, brother.
Go ahead, Dawgface. Yeah, go ahead.
So Poetic Flacco says, he said, you gotta go. He say, did Cuff admit that other people killed people and sold stuff? That's what Poetic Flacco's asking us, right?
I think in his Rule 11 the plea agreement, I think he did.
He acknowledged it during his allocution when they read off the elements of the crime. He acknowledged it, but that's the whole point. They're saying he admitted other people did so. What he admitted was to the elements of the crime that he was pleading guilty to. So whatever that was, there was already a predetermined situation where, they're saying you did X, Y, Z because you admitted to the elements of the crime. That doesn't mean that you're snitching on somebody.
Correct.
You're just admitting the elements of the crime. Now, let me give you some context from which to draw from. Here is the plea agreement of Chad E. Brown, aka J-Bo of BMF. Now, Chad E. Brown, he pled guilty. Here's his factual basis. And let's go up, just make sure we're on the same page, right? So this is the United States of America versus Chad E. Brown. Possession with the intent to distribute cocaine, 21 USC 841A, conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, 18 USC 1956. That's some mafia shit right there, right? And here's the statutory incarceration, 10 years. I think J-Bo did a little over 10 years, almost 11 years, right? His fine, he's fined $4 million or for one, and up to $500, up to $4 million for one, up to $500 for other. Here's his plea agreement. Let me read it. It said, pursuant to Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, defendant Chad E. Brown and the government agree as follows. Guilty plea. Counts of conviction. Defendant will enter pleas of guilty to counts 1 and 10, which charges conspiracy to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine and conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, respectively, and for which the penalty is between 10 years in life on count 5 and 20 years on count 10. The elements of the offense. The elements of the offenses that the government would need to prove beyond reasonable doubt at trial are, and it lists all the elements that they would need to prove at trial, right? So he's waiving on this because he's not going to trial, right? So when we get down to paragraph C of the factual plea, So we're talking about Cuffy. Oh, Cuffy admitted this during his plea. So since he admitted this and other people, blah, 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 that means that he told on nigga because he, by admitting something during a plea, during an allocution, because he's allocuting to crimes that had other people involved in them. So we're going to give you some context by which to judge the situation by somebody from BMF who is not accused of being anything other than a stand-up person as it relates to this conspiracy conviction and plea that he took for BMF. Nobody's saying J-Bo is a rat in layman's terms. Let's look at what J-Bo admitted to or acquiesced to, right? Factual basis for guilty plea. The following are a sufficient and accurate basis for defendant's guilty plea. From on or about 1994 through 2005, Chad E. Brown aided and abetted by others, possessed more than 15 but less than 50 kilograms of cocaine as a member of the drug trafficking organization led by Terry Flannery and Demetrius Flannery, Southwest T, and Big Meech, known as the Black Mafia family, as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Furthermore, from on or about 1999 through on or about 2005, defendant Chad E. Brown counted millions of dollars in cocaine proceeds that had been uploaded from or were to be loaded into vehicles equipped with hidden compartments that were used to transport the cocaine proceeds from Detroit, Georgia, Missouri, and elsewhere to California, Texas, and elsewhere for Black Mafia family drug trafficking organization. Defendant also aided and abetted others to transport millions of dollars in cash derived from the organization's sale of cocaine, right? Defendant knew that the cash that he had counted and loaded into and unloaded from vehicles represented cocaine proceeds and would be used and in fact were used to purchase cocaine, real estate, jewelry, vehicles in order to promote the drug trafficking activities of the organization and members. So Chad Brown, he admitted when he took his guilty plea, he acquiesced and he acknowledged these factors. That's what he did. So if you guys are saying that because you allocute and you admit to things that have other people, because it says that he worked for Demetrius and Terry. He pled guilty and he acknowledged that he worked for Demetrius and Terry. Right. He acknowledged that he loaded and unloaded millions of dollars of drug proceeds for Demetrius and Terry. He acknowledged that. He acknowledged that and he pled guilty in April of 2007. Big Meech and Southwest T, we know Southwest T was going to take this bitch to the house. He didn't want to plead guilty. He wanted to take this shit to the house. We know that his brother, Demetrius, convinced him at the 11th hour to go ahead and plead out because they were going to smash him if they went to trial. He know that. Too much evidence against me. J-Bo took his cop in April of 2007. Big Meech and Southwest T, they didn't take their cops until November, December. So because J-Bo took a cop in April of 2007, and he acknowledged and admitted that he worked for Southwest T and Big Meech, are y'all trying to say that because J-Bo admitted that he wasn't the mastermind of that shit, he wasn't the brains of that shit, he worked for those two guys. Those two guys ain't been found guilty yet. They're still fighting their case, thinking about fighting the case, trying to work out and finagle their own personal situation. So because J-Bo took a cop and the cop that he took had him acknowledging and admitting that he worked for these two brothers. According to the theory that was offered by Wack 100 and his cohorts, his fake legal team, according to that standard, that would make J-Bo a motherfucking rat. But J-Bo has never been accused of being a rat. I'm not accusing J-Bo of being a rat because I understand that taking a plea, even though that plea has other human beings involved with the crimes that they're saying you committed, that does not mean that you are a motherfucking rat. And it doesn't mean because you pled guilty to a crime that had other people associated with it That don't mean that you are saying that they are guilty like you're guilty. Mr. Perkins, can you weigh in on that?
Well, I mean, I think you're right in the sense that him taking a plea doesn't make him a rat. Like I said before, his plea cannot be used against those individuals at trial. Now, the perception and the common thread in the streets or in regular parlance, as one might say, people could see it that way because he's admitted to intricacies and nuances of the crimes to which he's pled, and he's inculpated those individuals by name. But again, in those individuals' separate trials and their abilities to defend themselves, I don't believe what J-Bo, unless there's things we don't know. There's a lot we may not know. We don't know whether or not he took this plea and that he made an agreement, okay, if those guys go to trial, I will testify against them. We don't know that.
And we'll never know it because they didn't go to trial. So we'll never
go to trial, but we could know it if, in fact, if you look at the history and see if they got a Rule 30, he got a Rule 35.
He did not. He did not.
He did not. So I'm led to believe that he didn't cooperate. I mean, I think the young man was reckless. I think that a lot of his actions and behaviors led to others, before everybody got indicted. That always happens. So that we're only as strong as our weakest link. And that doesn't mean that these individuals testified or cooperated against them that helped the investigation or helped the government put a case against everybody. But that in and of itself, that he took the opportunity to help himself out to the detriment of others, I can't say that because his plea does not do that. It would violate Bruton, it would violate Crawford, it violate the right to confrontation. This individual, these things cannot be used against them in their cases in chief. If government's presenting a case, they can't come in and say, well, Mr. Brown said that you did it like this and did all these other things. That would never come into play unless the Mr. Brown was going to testify and get the benefit of testifying, in which he'd ask for a 5K1 or he'd ask for a Rule 35.
So watch this. So this is what we know about J-Bo. We know that J-Bo took a plea. And in his plea, he he acknowledged that he worked for Demetrius. He acknowledged that he worked for Terry. He acknowledged that he moved millions of dollars of drug proceeds left and right, up and down, high and low, right? We know that J-Bo doesn't have a 5K1. He didn't get a downward departure. He didn't debrief. He didn't get, he don't get no Rule 35, which means he came and provided substantial assistance after his plea. He didn't do none of that shit. So he didn't do anything that did. Cuffy doesn't have a 5K1. He doesn't have a Rule 30. Before or after, he didn't cooperate, right? They're trying to say, Mr. Perkins, that he provided substantial assistance because he pled guilty, and the things that he pled guilty to had other people's names in association with it. That ain't how that go.
No, let me say this. So what we don't know, let's say, for instance, this is a hypothetical, pure hypothetical. Oftentimes, the federal government and law enforcement officers on the federal level, particularly on the federal level, because you see the more sophisticated individuals, you see the wealthier individuals who can afford elite lawyers, they try to put together a mechanism by which a person can provide information and it doesn't look like a 5K1, it doesn't look like cooperation, and they dress it up in a plea agreement that addresses those things, and they gave that information before they pled guilty, and we'll never know those things. Now,
and they get the negotiated pleas, the C pleas.
Let's say, for instance, if they're talking to the FBI. The FBI has these called 302s, which are their police reports, and that would have to be provided to those defendants who continue to go on and litigate their cases, and they may know directly. So let's say, for instance, if Mr. Flannery or either one of them, T or Meech, came back and said, man, I read the 302s. That son of a bitch provided this information long before, it was known to the investigators, and he got a benefit, and that's the reason why they gave him the plea that he got. But he specifically did not want a 5K1 because he would announce to people in the rest of the world, the entire world would know he's a snitch. And he did it that way through his lawyer, who's a real sophisticated lawyer, and did that. I would take that to the bank if they said that. I haven't heard that they have ever said that. They could be mad at the guy for being reckless in how he did that, but then at the same time, you kind of have to be reckless with yourself. You're like, you knew this dude was wild. You knew this dude was young. You knew you were giving him things that he wasn't ready to take hold of. And, you know, it was too much for that kid to handle.
And that's why
consumed with the publicity. They get consumed with the celebrity that comes with this kind of level of notoriety in the general public, in the streets. You know, these people are famous. They're more famous than the president in some areas, man. They, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
So watch this. So listen. So debriefing on a federal level so people are trying to say, well, because he acknowledged, because he pled guilty, that means he debriefed. That ain't what the fuck that mean.
No,
debriefing,
I'm not saying
that. That's not the same at all.
Yeah, but see, listen, I'm bringing this up because they're saying, well, he debriefed. There's no record showing Cuffy debriefed. There's no.
I don't have any. I don't know who Cuffy is. Let me tell you.
I got you, but I do. So there's Cuffy don't got no. He didn't debrief. He didn't qualify. Some people are saying, well, he had a downward departure. He didn't qualify for a downward departure because he had been in prison on 2 other occasions. So there are how many elements do you have to qualify for a downward departure, Ruler Gang?
If you got a felony or a prior felony, you can't get a down departure, right?
If you have more than 2 criminal history points, you can't. Right. And then if you have a firearm or some element of violence, that's going to disrupt that. But here's the thing: downward departure is different than 5K1. You know, you cannot provide information to the government and still be eligible for a downward departure.
Because my father got a downward departure.
Or you haven't quote unquote snitched against anyone. So
wait, let's stop right there. Because people are saying if you have a downward departure, I know that there's 2 sides of a downward departure that would trigger one.
You're talking about the safety valve. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the safety valve. Can we speak to what a safety valve is? Can you speak to that? What that is?
Yeah. Okay. Safety valve is not saying that you're going to cooperate, but it's saying that you're going to give information. It's kind of like the information that you saw in that plea agreement, that you're offering that information, but you're not offering that information for the purposes of testifying against this person at trial or even threatening to testify against this person at trial. But what they can do, let's say, for instance, if it's a relatively new investigation, they could use that safety valve information to be an affiant in a search warrant and then use a search warrant to continue their investigation. They could do that. But oftentimes, by the time you safety valve, the search warrant becomes irrelevant. It's stale at that point in time because, you know, you're talking about a year, maybe 2 years later that somebody might try to use that. But a safety valve says, basically, it tells, and here, a safety valve is going to be controlled by the U.S. attorney who's handling the case. They can ask basic questions. They can ask you, okay, what did you do? And you can say, well, I did this. I sold these kilos. I sold them in this particular manner. And they might not even ask you names. And then they go in and tell the judge, he qualifies for safety valve, judge. You can come underneath the mandatory minimum. You can break the seal of the mandatory minimum, and you can sentence them according to what you think is appropriate. These are the guidelines. The mandatory minimum no longer applies. Go ahead. We want, and the government may say, we still want above the mandatory minimum. We still want 121 months, even though the mandatory minimum is 120 months. They may still ask for that, but it's up to the judge. It's within the judge's lap and discretion at that point. And but again, that means, let's say, for instance, you get a more aggressive U.S. attorney. A more aggressive U.S. attorney might ask you questions. Okay, so what did Mr. Flannery do? And if you decide that you don't want to answer that, they can go into the court and say, Judge, he did not safety valve appropriately. Then you can have a separate hearing with the judge to say, look, Judge, we weren't asking for 5K1 points. We were asking for points to get safety valve. And what he was asking, he's trying to get more from a safety valve than what he's entitled to. That's what I would do as a defense attorney if my client doesn't want to talk about, and oftentimes don't want to talk about their co-defendants, even though what they're saying against their co-defendants won't hurt them at a later trial. You know, but I know clients who are purists. I have a young guy right now Man, he's a purist, man. He's like, no, I don't want a safety valve. I don't want nothing associated with it. Just give me my time. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and take me away, and I'll work it out from there. I'll work it out, try to get some points, or try to get some reduction through the First Step Act. I'll try to get some points through trying to get into a camp. I got a low severity conviction. I got no priors. There's no firearm associated with this particular matter, so therefore I should qualify.
Okay,
for
so
all of the
that's a good point that you make up. No firearm in that specific situation. So in Cuffy's situation, he wouldn't have qualified for a safety valve anyway due to the nature of the charges. One of the disqualifying things that you could have is no violence or credible threats of violence. So the offense must not involve violence, threats of violence, or causing serious bodily injury or death. He would have never qualified for a safety valve either.
You got all of them.
Yeah, but look, what I was gonna say, right?
Yeah, you're right. Ruler, you're absolutely right. It's the underlying basis is violent.
Before you go, Byron, let me ask you a question. So listen, somebody said, let me go here. So listen, when you're pleading guilty during allocution, and the judge is listing up the things you are pleading guilty to, that you have to acknowledge that you did, right? Can you plead the fifth during allocution and still, will the judge still accept your plea of guilt? Can you plead the fifth doing allocution?
You have to plead no contest.
You can go into sentencing and not say nothing.
Not
you don't
sentencing.
have to allocute.
Not sentencing.
Plea agreement.
When you plea hearing, when you plead guilty,
what happens before, especially in federal court, well, and even in state court, but in federal court, it's more, the dynamic is more, there's more angles to it. And so before you even get to the point of presenting something to the judge, the lawyers and the defense attorneys and the U.S. attorneys have already worked out what they believe to be the factual basis. And then they'll be like, listen, this is what you're going to plead guilty to, which substantiates the basis upon which the court can accept this plea. So those things are worked out beforehand. So you sign that document. It's basically a contract.
I get you. Watch this. Here's my question.
Yeah.
So the agreement is already worked out before you even walk into the courtroom. So when you walk into the courtroom, court is in session. It's a plea hearing. It's when you entering a guilty. This is your plea hearing. During the plea hearing, when you're allocated and the judge is asking you, hey, you did X, Y, Z. If you say, well, no, I plead fifth on that, what's going to happen to that plea hearing?
Well, see, that's not a sufficient plea. You have to admit certain things in order to, you can carve out certain things, but, so let's talk about allocution. I look at allocution as something that happens at sentencing. Allocution that, basically what you're doing as a plea hearing is you're providing information that gives them enough basis upon which the elements of the crime have been met. So therefore, when you're at a plea hearing, you can say, look, judge, my lawyer wanted me to say this. The U.S. attorney wanted me to say this. I signed the document that says this, but I want to tell you, I don't want to talk about nobody else. I did do all these things, but I'm not talking about those other individuals. And the judge most likely would be like, look, okay, you guys go work this out. We're going to adjourn this plea hearing. If this is what he wants to do, then that's fine. And he doesn't want to talk about anyone else. But I want to know, okay, so a lot of times I'll have a plea agreement that says people unknown to the grand jury that you conspired with for the purposes of selling this cocaine. That's how you kind of do it.
I got a question, man.
But at the end of the day, they're not looking. Some people are looking at it from a matter of fact perspective, saying, "Look, even if I say these people's names, they already know it, but they can't use it against this person at trial. So it doesn't amount to nothing."
Hey, Mr. Perkins, so watch this. Everybody's like under the impression that when they have co-defendants, if someone take their plea first, that it kind of like puts pressure on them from a lawyer aspect and a lawyer like. Behind the scenes, if your lawyer is let's say Cuffy, and there's another lawyer that's for Big Meech and his brother, right? But Big Meech and them, they took their plea after Cuffy did, right? So does the attorneys use that to put pressure on them so that they are discouraged from taking it to trial? You know what I mean?
Well, let me say it like this. So what an attorney could say is, listen, bro, I heard they're going to come at him with a hell of an offer later on under that auspices of the Rule 35 to offer him an opportunity to plead, to testify against you, which is not a part of any information or any document, and that might motivate somebody to take a plea. But in and of itself, if there's no debriefing, there's no documentation that says that he's agreeing to testify, that he's going to do those things, then that's of no moment. But again, there's one thing they say in federal court. The person to plead first usually gets the best deal, right? Because he gets in and out of the way, and the judge doesn't know as much about the case before he pled. And, that's oftentimes, like, I'm dealing with some people right now, or I've tried to fix some situations where I was the second or third attorney, and the first attorney was telling people to plead on the complaint. Just plead on the complaint before there's even an indictment, because if there's a complaint, there's less information known, is less information that gets sent to the probation department. The probation is which communicates directly with the judge. So if I plead on a complaint and it just says something about 10 kilos, yeah, it might be a mandatory minimum of 10, but that's all the judge knows. He doesn't know all about this. You beat this bitch down in the airport. You did all these other things. You did, that come up through the indictment. The indictment's going to have it all.
I'm speaking from the attorneys. Like, so would the attorneys say, Cuffy pled guilty, let's really go after Big Meech and his brother, because now because we have information where we kind of like know even more that that this part or this activity took place.
They already do it anyway.
They already know it. No, that's not. Listen. What you're pleading guilty to is what they're saying you did. So the question, I believe his question is, so if I plead guilty, does that trigger something in what does me plead?
I think psychologically it does.
Right.
I think psychologically
and that's what I mean though. Like right. And that's why like a lot of co-defendants who have co-defendants, whoever get a plea first or whoever get a separate trial, they automatically feel like that other one told.
Sometimes, especially for people who are locked up. Because people who are locked up are only getting minimal information, and they can only get information because the risk is if you try to get information from the outside coming in, they listen to all your phone calls. You only get information from your lawyer, and you only get information from people who are already in the joint. And that information coming from in the joint is always suspect because you don't know what angle they got, and people try to get in on your discovery to see whether or not they might cooperate against you, saying, "Oh yeah, he told me this," So you got to be cautious about
county all day.
Can't talk about.
Hold on one second, brother. Here's the big question. The big question is, if we are all under indictment, knock on wood,
right?
If I
knock on wood that we're not.
Yeah, knock on wood that we're not. If I plead guilty first.
Right.
And I'm not telling it on anybody, but we are all charged with the same thing, roughly, or thereabout. Mm-hmm. If I plead guilty to that thing, does that trigger? We know the prosecutor like, yeah, bitch.
Right, there we go.
The prosecutor like, yeah, bitch. One fall, rest of them fall too. But does my plea of guilty automatically signal to the judge or jury? If it comes to that with other defendants, does it automatically factor in because I pled guilty that has impact on them who have not pled guilty?
So let me say
exactly trial type.
Yeah. So there's a guy who just Sean _ LA. He says the exact same thing that I would say. The perception is that if one or two people, he says, if 8 people get arrested and 7 plead guilty, and then that last one, everybody's mindset is, bro, you guilty. You know what I'm saying? But again, what we have to do is be professionals. And we hope that the judge is going to be professional in that, you're going to trial because you believe that, that you have some issues that they cannot prove you guilty. So therefore, but if you found guilty, then the judge is going to sentence you. What you lose is that 3 points of acceptance of responsibility, that reduction, which can be substantial as far as reducing the months. So, and then it's also, if you go to trial, you lose the ability to allocute as much and say, well, I'm sorry for doing this. My choices were limited. I chose this life because I was using drugs, all these other things, or I got caught up in the life. If you go to trial and lose, then you lose that opportunity or some of that opportunity to make a pitch to the court as far as allocution. So, but the perception is if people plead guilty, 2 or 3 people plead guilty, and the momentum is there from the prosecutor to start getting people to plead guilty. And here's another thing what the prosecutor do. Sometimes they'll offer the last 2 or 3 people that are remaining, especially if they're not the number 1, 2, or 3 the defendants on the indictment, they'll offer them a sweetheart deal because why am I going to use government resources to go after somebody who is basically secondary to this investigation? So it depends. You have to look at this from the perspective of where do I find myself in the course of this indictment and in my involvement in the criminality that's alleged. And then I have to make and position myself as to what everyone else is doing. Not that people are cooperating, but the looming threat of cooperation is always out there. And I tell you another thing. If I'm in an indictment, let's say, for instance, if you're in an indictment with 20 people that you grew up with, you know who your weak links are. If you've been together long enough, you know who your weak links are. Even though they said they weren't cooperating, even though they took a plea that didn't involve cooperation, you could still say, man, I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna take my chances and get my lawyer to get me the best deal. So, that's one way of looking at it.
For sure.
Yeah, but what I've been waiting to chime in and say on this, I want to spin back to the question with a statement that Dawgface made about allocutions.
I can't hear Blake.
Have a right? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. He may have to go out. And come
I'm
back
gonna have
in.
to sign out again. Let me sign out again. I'll come right back.
Go ahead, Byron. Finish your thoughts, Byron.
So as far as the allocution go, right, and having the ability to say yeah or no when the judge is talking to you, right? I was personally in that situation in my case, and my brother was my co-defendant. And I agreed to take an 8-year plea. This was a Wednesday. I agreed to take an 8-year plea. And we went over there. And at the time, he wasn't even taking a plea. He didn't know nothing about, you know what I'm saying? He was still actively fighting the case, so to speak. I get over there and we get to we get all the way into the plea process. Them asking, and when we get to the allocution part, they bring up the fact that witnesses has said that he handed me the gun, so it got to, okay, you agree, your brother, me being conscious of the fact that he's still fighting his case, I stopped the plea hearing. Hold on, no, I don't want to do that. And it went exactly like Mr. Perkins saying. The judge said, hey, y'all go back, settle that, figure that part out. We actually was able to come to an agreement where I got the exact same time. I just didn't have to mention that part. You see what I'm saying? I didn't have to go in and say, my brother handed me the gun, I shot, but I still got the same time. So I'm saying that to say that there are ways where you can, correct certain things. You don't have to agree to exactly what the prosecution wants you to agree to as far as terms, because at the end of the day, it's about the time. They want the time. They want the conviction. If they offering you 10 and, you saying, well, I'll take the 10, but I don't want to plead guilty and say I was working for them or moving drugs for them. I'm going to just say I was selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? Right. In most cases and situations I've seen.
No, so my thing is, hey Byron, my thing is this. So listen, so let's make sure I want to clarify this point.
I can't hear him now.
Go in and come back out.
No,
go out and come back in.
Said go out and come back in.
So listen. So here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So allocution. So it's like, so when you at your plea hearing. When you're pleading guilty, your judge is going to talk about the elements of the case. He has to be satisfied that you are pleading to this of your free will, with your own knowledge, free of any undue stress. So when you're pleading guilty, right, that plea has already been agreed upon by both sides, the prosecution and the defense side. So when you come into the equation, already understanding what it is you're pleading to. If you doing the allocution when the judge, you said, no, I don't agree with that right there. That's going to stop. Mr. Perkins.
I had to sign in and sign out. What happened now?
No problem. So doing your plea hearing, so let's not use the word allocution. During your plea hearing, as you're pleading guilty, the judge is going over the elements of the crimes that you are pleading guilty to, right?
Right.
And he's asking you, do you acknowledge these things, that you are guilty of these things, right?
Right.
So if you say, no, I didn't do that, that automatically gonna stop that motherfucking plea hearing, ain't it?
It could. What happens, like what Blake was saying, what Mr. Blake was saying is that the specific allegations about who was involved, I can still plead guilty. Let's say, for instance, hold on one second. Let me pull up what's the guy's name? Chad Brown. I had his plea up here. You had sent it to me earlier. But let's say, for instance, if a person is conspiring to sell narcotics or cocaine in an amount of more than 5 kilograms, which would trigger the mandatory minimum of 10 years, I could say, look, I did do that. I did do that with other individuals. I refuse to say who those other individuals are. And so the judge can still take that as a valid plea because you're acknowledging the other individuals, you're acknowledging that you did do that, you knowingly did that, you understood that these were drugs that you were transacting in, and you did.
Could he also deny it?
You can't deny it in him accepting.
No, I said, can the judge also deny it? Because you're saying that he can still possibly honor the plea, but could he also possibly deny it? Here's
the conflict. The conflict is when you see those plea agreements, it has a factual basis written up. It has names and Mr. Brown's had names and names of the organization. Did it also have Mr. Flannery's name in it as well?
Yes, his name is in it.
So it had those things indicated in there. Now I could say, listen, my client doesn't want to say all these other things. Why would he say these things and not get the benefit of a 5K1, which he's not asking for? But at the end of the day, you can figure those things out. But sometimes lawyers will tell you, look, man, just take this plea. It doesn't hurt them at their trial. Just go on and get closure to your business. But a guy like Avon Cohn, a judge like him, man, he'll take your plea as long as you say the elements. He'll take your plea and you go on and push on. Now, does it affect your ability to effectively allocute when you go to sentencing? It could, because you're still protecting other individuals, which in your mind, not necessarily in the court's mind, but in your mind, they're guilty. Because if you're guilty and you did it with them, they're guilty too, from your perspective, in that lane. Just in
that judge can feel some kind of weight about that once you do get the sentence. See, that's a gamble right there.
I don't think Avon Cohn would.
Well, that's that judge though. That's that judge.
The greatest judges Eastern District ever knew.
Yeah, but that's that judge though. It's a whole lot of judges, a whole lot of counties,
not only that,
states.
Not only that though. Yeah. Not only that though, I think one of the issues with just actually pleading guilty and admitting to doing things with other people is actually the issue, regardless of how the courts look at it or not. I think what's going on right now in the consensus is if you cop out to a plea and they say that, okay, Ruler Gang, you participated in hitting 7 gaming shops with Dawgface and Byron Blake, and and I'm pleading guilty to that with those 2 individuals' names in it. That's the issue that's coming up, is where people are saying, okay, even though you don't have a Rule 35, even though you don't have a 5K1, when you plead guilty, you plead guilty and admitted to doing crimes with other people.
So would you say that the best approach, even though we know this shit don't really even happen anymore, everybody stick together and shut the fuck up?
Well, I mean, it always makes it more difficult for that.
Yeah, I know that shit don't work no more, but that's the one right there. That's the way out.
I remember back in the day. So I'm a 70s baby, right? And before I became a lawyer, there were some guys off the east side. I don't know if y'all guys from Detroit or not, but you know, these guys were from the East Side, group of guys that all got indicted around the same time. They decided to plead guilty and tell on each other all at once. And they came in with a package deal. And, you know, the other ones recognized my man's going to get a better deal than me because he ain't got no record. I got a record, so I'm going to accept that. But we all got good deals. It saved the prosecution the time and pursuing and intensify the investigation and prepping for trial. And it gave closure to everybody. But everybody operated on that same accord.
And that's what I think is the difference in Cuffy's situation compared to J-Bo's situation. Because I think that Cuffy's plea signifies all of them dudes saying, yeah, we gonna go ahead and rock out with this, which is why I'm from St. Louis. I have never heard nobody that was involved in that case come out and say Cuffy was telling. I know somebody that was his cellmate when he was in St. Louis County before the feds, before he went to the holdover and all, before he even went through that process, and it was never a thing that Cuffy was telling. But again, it's understood that he at the top. So, you know, if he's saying, man, look, the best thing for us to do is cop out, get out of here, then they probably gonna ride with that. Whereas we know in J-Bo case, T was still saying, man, I want to go to trial. I get I know you a defense attorney, so you know you got
right.
You come from a different angle.
But he's got his brother. You know, there's a lot of things. Like, man, this is, I don't know what happened because I wasn't involved in that case. But what I hear was that his brother, Mr. Meech, told him, I think it's best for us to take plea deals.
And look, I think that's a perfect segue right there, right? Mm-hmm. Because hear me out. This is part of the thing too that I think is getting under Dawgface skin with this whole topic is J-Bo took that plea, right? Mm-hmm. And then Meech convinced T, hey, let's take this plea.
Right.
And then a year after, Meech filed his 2255 and say, hey, man, I ain't do nothing. If I'm guilty of anything, it's being Terry's brother. It's associating with him if I'm guilty of something. So it looked like, you allowed your mans to come in here and throw me under the bus. Mm-hmm. And then you convinced me that we should go ahead and take this and roll out. And you got all this shit on the record. And then you come back a year later and say, no, it wasn't me. It was him.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But as a lawyer, I look at it like that's an angle that Meech was trying to play. Well, look at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Terry got out before Meech.
Yeah.
Terry was a better,
But
Terry,
the streets don't operate on the end of the day. They don't operate on that. They operate off.
No, they do. You're right about that. But at the end of the day, it looks like he stuck his brother in the back. That's how people could perceive that. Yeah. I don't see it that way. I just see it as he's just trying to play an angle to see if he can use this to get out.
For sure. I understand. You an attorney, Me, but on the other hand, I'm trying to prosecute these.
But here's another thing. Here's another thing. Some people could argue that Meech was mad because, from what I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, I told you I wasn't involved in the case, but with limited information I had was that Mr. Terry Flannery was more reckless on the wire.
Yeah, all of the evidence pointed to T.
So the evidence came through a lot of.
So one could argue that T should have took the weight and not let them even be in that situation.
He could have. But see, here's the thing. Here's the irony, and here's the irony on the whole thing. Meech. What is Mr. Demetrius Flannery? I like legal names because. I don't know these gentlemen. I know how people like to talk about them as T, and I think they deserve to be mentioned in a professional sense. If he signs a contract, he doesn't sign it as Big Meech. He signs it as Mr. Demetrius Flannery. But as Mr. Demetrius Flannery had the overwhelming presence in the public eye, Mr. Terry Flannery did not. But yet Mr. Terry Flannery's communications were captured under Title III's more so than what Mr. Demetrius Flannery's was. So it kind of like they were toppled under the weight of their own success and their own mistakes. It was a mistake to want to be, you know, in this game and using the phone to communicate. It's a mistake to be in this game and to have such a prominent public perception or public image and still have one foot in the street game. You know, I'm not saying that that's actually the case, but you know, those are the mistakes that took place. And so when he got convicted, after they both got convicted, you know, Demetrius Flannery decided, I'm going to do a 2255 to see if that worked. You know.
So I got a question though. You know, just to clarify, when he actually did that 2255, and it was stated that the only thing he was guilty of being his brother, Terry Flannery's brother. Was that me saying that, or was that his lawyers actually saying that?
Well, the words of the lawyer always can be conveyed upon the client. So he's saying that for the purposes of having the judge make a decision on this.
Right. So at the end of the day, they was already sentenced, correct?
Yeah.
No, they were already
right. So that was just him trying to create an exit out of that motherfucker. Right.
But you know, my stance on that is if he would have been successful in that, then you know, who does that? You said what?
Who mad about that?
It ain't about being mad about it. It's just
not mad like that, but who don't like
that? No,
like
it's just evaluating, you know what I'm saying? The paperwork. My stance on it is if you do come back, let's say you successful in this 2255. Now you have things in here that, you know, I feel the prosecution could argue are judicial admissions. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm more so like this. Well, this is my take on it. Y'all can probably disagree with this shit or not, but my thing is like, I know you motherfuckers ain't getting mad at me for coming up with a good lie to get the fuck up out of here.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
For sure. But you know, if that story that you come up with can if you decide, let's say Meech would have came back and decide, man, I want to go to trial. You know what I mean? Depending on whether or not he want to take the stand or however that go, certain things that he's saying in that 2255 can be brought up and used.
Hey,
it can't be used against Terry because Terry has pled guilty. So
he already gone.
And I tell you this,
but
if they had competing 2255s, that could potentially be used against him in the argument against him getting some relief. Yeah, that could.
Yeah, if Terry were to file a 2255, you know what I'm saying?
Right, and I ain't no Big Meech fan. I ain't no BMF fan. I ain't none of that shit, right? I don't give a fuck about them niggas, right? But what I'm saying is, I don't give a fuck if Terry would have came up with the fucking lie or Big Meech would have came up with the lie. That could have created comfort for the motherfuckers that was incarcerated. I know if I get the fuck out and I'm back on the streets, I got a crew to take care of. They got a bit.
No, for sure. But at the same time, like he said, had Terry decided he want to file a 2255 and he want to say, man, I ain't do nothing. This evidence, this don't point to me, you know, and actually try to refute the evidence. Then they now got something from him. From
your brother
Meech,
this.
saying this. That'd be my thing, bro. I don't be trying to make these people be snitches. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to put no jacket on nobody. But at the same time, I like to play devil's advocate when it comes to this because this topic is so prevalent because so many people try to bend the rules or, you know, make like we talking about now. They trying to apply something to Cuffy that if this was their actual like logic and the way they applied this to everybody, then J-Bo in the Vlad TV interview, the reception of it, all of that shit would have been different. You know, you can't say Cuffy a rat for this, but 2 years or 3 years ago, you was praising this dude and he did the exact same thing. You know, but the lines get so blurred because a lot of people don't know what can be used, what can't be used. So every time this topic come up, it turns into a debate about what can be used and what can't be used. And we really never get to the bottom of whether or not.
Hold on. That's the essence of this conversation, really. Right.
They regenerate.
So, hold on. In Cuffy's plea agreement, he allocated, he acknowledged and he accepted responsibilities for the crime that he was found guilty on, that he pled out to. In J Bo's situation, he did the same thing. There were names mentioned. Mm-hmm. His role was mentioned. The fact that they were the bosses and they ran the organization was mentioned, and he copped out to them. What's the difference? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying either one of them. I don't believe that either one of those situations are cooperation. But I'm saying that what your Cuffy acknowledged that it was some killings. He acknowledged those were what the state charged him with, what the feds charged him with. He didn't tell him he killed. See, the difference is Cuffy didn't say, oh, he wasn't the witness. He didn't cooperate with the feds and say, oh, he shot him, he shot him, he shot him. All he did was plead guilty to what the prosecution had established. He didn't give any information to say he didn't give any testimony. He didn't take the stand. He didn't provide any information to the feds saying this person did this and that person did that. So that's why that person is locked up. They were all locked up to begin with, and he copped out to what the feds said he did, and he wasn't the one. Nobody went to prison for anything Cuffy said. And in fact, the person that he was locked up with, Mr. Andre Dre Rush, he was the one who told on him to help bring the whole thing down outside of the wiretap.
Right.
So my thing is, if J Bo said, I plead guilty, Demetrius and T, I work for them. I push dope and money for them. I work for them. I transported millions of illegal dollars for them. I got money laundering. I did all this shit for them.
Mm-hmm. So watch this, Dawgface. So Meech was telling shit before plea agreements and sentences, correct?
No.
Okay.
See, my thing is this, right, dog? This is where I think too a lot of people get where the whole debriefing shit come from. Because after you take your plea on a federal level, I don't know how other states do, but I know in Illinois they do a pre-sentence investigation, but they do it on their own. They don't really require you to talk to nobody. But on the federal level, most times dudes have to go in, sit down with that probation officer, that pre-sentence report get prepared, and they gonna ask you about the stuff that you pleading out to. Like
you
you
don't
say
have
that.
to say nothing.
No, you don't. You don't. And this is why, Mr. Perkins, if you hear me talk on this topic, in all ask, even when I've spoken to Wackesha on this topic, I always say, if you really want to know, get the pre-sentence report. You know what I'm saying?
Those things are typically sealed.
Yeah. And that's why I say all these guys who be saying they solid, you want to clear your name of show me that. I don't want to see your plea agreement, your transcript. Let me see the pre-sentence so I can know if you did sit down in that interview and talk. Because he gonna ask you if you sat down, he gonna ask you, okay, what was their role? What did you do?
Let me tell you a better way to assess it. Get the sentencing transcript.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that's what you listen. When you go to Fed and you hit a medium to up your,
because they're gonna argue aggravating, mitigating factors. Usually in the mitigating factors, that's something that come up.
Yeah. So listen, when you go to listen. So we talk about listen. So there are nuances that we have to examine here. So if we want to know if somebody is a snitch on the federal level, we look at the sentencing transcripts. In the sentencing transcripts, it will articulate if there's a downward departure for any reason, right? Yeah. If you have a 5K1, right? That means that you have provided substantial assistance.
Yeah. My father got one. My father was a level 43, which made him a mandatory life sentence. But the judge said, hey, nobody died on this case. It ain't really no violence. And then he had some aggravating factors, 3553, because somebody claimed that he was trying to have them threaten a witness while he was locked up. But the judge still found mitigating factors that say, hey, I don't think he deserved life. So he got the down. He took his own initiative to give him a downward departure, and he sentenced him still to 35 years. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't give him life. You know what I mean? So it's some instances where you can get a downward departure that's not a 5K1 rule 35. You know, like it's up to the judge. He might just feel like, no, not life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you 420 months, but not life though.
I get you. We're judging this whole conversation from the terms of whether a motherfucker is a rat or not. Are you a snitch because you have pled guilty to a crime that
Let's define snitch. Let's define snitch.
A snitch. Are you giving the police, or by pleading guilty to a crime where other people are involved? Does that mean that you are cooperating against them, or you're nailing them to the cross? Does your plea of guilt, when the charge you're pleading guilty to has other people in it, does your plea of guilt means that they are guilty because you're pleading guilty to what the court said y'all all did?
Let me say it like this. Let's go back to what you initially said. A 5K1 means that you provided substantial assistance. 5K1, we can all describe, the word snitch is a 5K1. It's built into a 5K1. That's the essence of snitching, is a 5K1, right? So if your guilty plea inculpates and includes other individuals, yet it cannot be used against those other individuals, and more oftentimes than not, it's information that's already known by the government. All you're providing is the confirming source from your perspective, but cannot be used against those individuals. I don't look at that as snitching. I look at that as a person just saying, look, take me back to my cell. I'm going to take what I got. And these guys were in it with me. I would be lying. Here's the thing. I would be lying to the court, which would expose me to another crime if put to that question. Now, I could just tell the judge, look, judge, I don't want to speak on that. Like Mr. Blake said, I didn't want to say certain things. So then judge says, let's stop this proceeding. Let's go work it out. Maybe we'll take some of those things out. But as long as the elements are met, I can accept your plea. And you can come in, you can allocute on your own. You can say, I'm sorry for the stuff that I did and not mention nobody else. You could do that. But doing that and including other people to the effect that it doesn't really affect those other people's separate cases, I don't necessarily look at that as snitching. It just doesn't, to the public eye and to the streets, it's not really palatable. It's not really,
from the streets is gonna say that you actually cooperated or snitched when you plead out. Yeah. And you naming other people saying like, yeah, we all was doing it. You know what I mean?
Does rule the game.
And so, just like I look at D-Tank trades, I'm looking, that's what the street used, exactly what you said, Ruler. He says snitching equals telling the criminal information to the authorities. If you accept that as the definition of snitching, then those plea agreements are snitching. That's it. Right. It's how you define what snitching is. From a lawyer's perspective, if I'm representing a guy, let's say I was representing either Flannery brothers, right? And Chad Brown took a plea. I would tell either Flannery brother, him taking a plea is of no effect to us. It may move the needle psychologically and make you want to say, look, let me take your plea. But let's look at our own individual circumstances, because he's not agreeing to cooperate against us. I would tell them, look, he's not a snitch for our purposes, but for the streets, he may be a snitch. I can't control that.
So my question is this. Me taking a plea, does me taking a plea in a case where there are multiple people being charged with the same offenses, does me taking a plea automatically is me acknowledging my guilt in the situation, does that mean that the courts are going to use my acceptance, my guilty plea against my co-defendants?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So listen. So are you telling me that when in in Chad Brown's plea, are you telling me that because he acknowledged that he worked for the Flannery brothers, right? He acknowledged it. Does that don't make him a rat, because they can't take that acknowledgement of the crime that he's pleading guilty to and use it against anybody as far as criminal elements, right?
for their own separate cases. You got to break each person on an indictment down to their own separate cases. And if he's not coming into court, placing themselves under oath in their cases, then he's not a snitch from a legal perspective. Now, again, psychologically, from the street perspective, from the common, from like us just talking on the street corner, yeah, he's snitching. But in the sense of from a lawyer's perspective, what he said, in my mind, he just took the opportunity to take a plea because he had an avenue to keep his numbers down. He took that plea. He said what he said, and that's not going to be used against him. And that's not going to be used against other people, that is.
What advice would you give a defendant who in that situation, he take the plea and then he gets served the subpoena and they say, we need you to just come in and we only going to question you about the stuff that you already pleaded guilty to, what advice?
What I'm going to tell him, okay, let's just talk. I'm going to take off my legal hat and I'm going to tell him to go wipe their asses with that subpoena. Just tell them, they can kiss my ass because I'm getting ready to go do time for something and a substantial amount of time. And you want me to come in here and talk about people he probably know and love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have snitched on people that they love. And that's a hard thing to do. And then they're going to have to live with that scarlet letter on their chest for the rest of their life. You know what I'm saying? So, but at the end of the day, he gets no value for coming in. They can give him
I know that for sure.
That's a rookie prosecutor. That's a rookie prosecutor that's going to try to serve him a subpoena. He going to get laughed at. I mean, every defense attorney in the world going to be laughing at that prosecutor if he serves this guy with a subpoena and he didn't have an agreement for this guy to cooperate. Because if the guy's not cooperating, he's like, what you going to do with that? You going to give me a year in jail? That the judge going to let me serve concurrently? If that's the case,
that's like a shot in the dark from a prosecutor, ain't it?
Yeah, that's all that is. And then everybody in the legal community gonna be laughing at you. Is that what you want to do? Go ahead, rock with that.
Let me ask you a question. So this whole conversation brings up the situation with Gunner. Gunner took a plea, and during his plea hearing, we all heard it because they leaked the tape, they leaked the footage. When the judge asked him, when they ran down the list of things that he's pleading guilty to, Gunner said yes. Right. And then he was labeled as a snitch. Right. But none of what he said, he didn't point the finger at anybody. He just agreed to plead guilty to the charges as the prosecutor knew them to be. Nothing that he did put anybody in jail. He didn't provide any substantial information. All he did was plead guilty to the elements of the crime that they all eventually pled guilty to.
Right.
Your thug took a plea.
Mm-hmm.
The whole crew took a plea. And so the whole crew had to acknowledge and accept responsibility from some element of that fucking indictment. They all took a plea.
See, but watch this though, right? Gunner was kind of like trying to set the tone that we going to trial as a unit, right? And that's the part I'm talking about. Like young thug, right? And that's the part I'm talking about, to where Gunner taking that cop, like the psychological part, it makes everybody feel like, man, Gunner then took his cop. You about to take the best shit that's coming, because now the people that's prosecuting us, they kind of know some shit now. Like they really trying to stand on it now. That's the part I was trying to get Mr. Perkins to
say that again
to elaborate on.
Say that again.
Okay, so like the YSL case, Gunner take his plea,
right,
and everybody else know that he took his plea, right. So they feeling like he threw them under the bus. So now, like the psychological part that you was talking about, they started feeling like, well, I know originally it was like, well, we're gonna stick together. We still stick together, but then they all started breaking off slowly but surely, right? Then when they get to the end, it seems like that's typical. They all like, once somebody take that cop, everybody trying to find the best cop coming their way. So yeah, they play strong, they play tough, but they always waiting for that cop to come so they can get out of it, because that first motherfucker took that cop and he got this ball rolling down towards us. And that's why I was trying to get you to say, yeah, you say, no, they can't use that shit. So it's not affecting the other co-defendants. But watch this. Okay, let's say that it don't legally. They can't use that shit. But do they fucking know though? But do they fucking know? Do all the attorneys walking around that? Listen. Do all the motherfucking attorneys walking around that bitch know that Gunner took that motherfucking cop? He pled to this, and this is what we trying to come at them on. So now we more adamant at coming at them on because this motherfucker just confirmed, like he was confirmation for us.
But here's the thing, though, Underdog. They already know what happened. In their own mind, they already know what happened. Gunner just took an opportunity to take a plea, close his shit out, and go on about his business. No,
as far as co-defendants is concerned,
expose something to which they already knew or what they already believed. I'm talking about law enforcement and the prosecutor. Right. But that, so what you're talking about,
well, he didn't expose anything. He just acknowledged,
confirmed.
He confirmed it. So he didn't.
See what I think
it means that he told on this shit that got them locked up. He didn't tell them.
They was already locked up.
It was already locked up.
Yeah. See, I think that the thing that had people confused with Gunner was the way they questioned him. Some of the things, it seemed like investigative questioning. Like they asked him, okay, you was in the car, it was you and Thug. They found a gun. Was it your gun? No. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of leave it like, okay, you admit to being in the car, you admit it was a gun there, but it's not your gun. So who else is in the car? Whose gun is it?
What they're also doing is a couple of things. One, they're getting a factual basis for him to accept this plea. Right? Maybe they're getting a little more detail than what they need to in order for him to accept the plea. But they're also making sure that Gunner can't take his plea and then later on come back and try to help Thug and say, because if Gunner take the plea and they don't ask him those detailed questions, he can later on come back and say, no, and Thug could call him as a witness and say, that was your gun. And they can't charge Gunner again over that because it would be double jeopardy would apply.
So it does hurt the case to a degree because now you're not a prosecution witness, but you eliminated yourself as a defense witness.
Perhaps, but he wasn't going to be no defense witness anyway.
Yeah. Woody did the same thing when that motherfucker Woody did the same thing but when he came to testify, he just dummied up. You know what I mean? And that kind of fucked it up for him.
Now see, Woody was apparently somebody who already gave information, right? He gave this information, but yet when he came to court, he came silent. Man, I don't know what y'all talking about. Actually, he got more stardom out of the case than everybody.
That's right. He actually helped it in the end.
Yeah, he did. Because he can't. You know something? Here's another thing. Let me tell you what helped that case. That judge, the black dude, was an absolute buffoon. And he wanted to make sure that Thug was convicted, and he did things. But see, that lawyer would stand up. That lawyer stood up, and he went to jail for his client not to give up them notes or that information that he got from somebody within court staff who gave him that information. Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing. I'll tell you who wasn't no snitch. That white boy wasn't no snitch. That lawyer, he wasn't no snitch.
Yeah, he did.
You know what I'm saying? And see, when the judge got so emotional and so invested in the case, they had to remove him. When they removed that judge, it changed the trajectory of that case. And shortly after they removed that judge, then they came with that cop that got everybody closed out and the case was over with. But now I tell you what, Thug, he need not to piss in the wind at all. Don't fart in the wind. You know what I'm saying? Because they will be on his ass from a federal level this time. If the feds come at you, they have more resources, they have more time, and they have more information, and they're gonna pony up on snitches long before than the state does, and they're better at it.
So switching gears a little bit, we got Byron Blake here now. Byron, you've been going through some stuff. We've been seeing some lawsuits floating around on the internet and stuff, man. What's going on with? I know something happened with your page, man. Break that down for us and let us know where you at with that.
Yeah. So what happened is, I was covering the Big U case. And I ran across some information that I feel like, points to Wack being an informant. Of course, I had other information on that channel. I had the 1090 Jake cooperation papers on there. I had the Seti Nash cooperation papers on there. So what happened is these dudes, they come together and it's a combined effort whether they actually came together or not, because it's coming from all these different places, but they got my channel removed, and it was under the pretense that I was spreading false information about them. And so they used the bullying and harassment. And I really just filed the civil claims. One, everybody got defamation accusations, defamation for saying that the paperwork was fake or that I lied, because at the end of the day, I consider myself an investigative journalist to a degree, and my platform is built on integrity. How much integrity I have, I think that determines how successful you are when you in this type of situation. You got some people that put out anything, they get the quick clicks and views, and then it's over. But I prefer to be on point. So they launched this assault on my platform, and man, I'm taking everybody to court, civil court. If you said I lied on you, I'm gonna present my case to the court, present my complaint with all of my exhibits showing that I didn't lie and that you did, in fact, defame me. I did suffer some injury because by them spreading that lie and rallying up all of these people, now you got a group of people who really feel like I'm spreading false information, and now they targeted my channel with these complaints, and it caused me to lose my channel. But at the end of the day, it's just about getting the truth out there. The defamation, I feel like, in order for them to prove that they didn't defame me, they have to prove that I lied on them. So again, I'm gonna bring in all of these documents and everything I have that show what I feel points to you being an informant, and then you can come in and argue your case as to why you didn't defame me. It was absolute truth or substantial truth, however you want to word it, and show me what you got that says that you're not, and that's just the angle that I'm taking with that.
Yeah, I think that's a step in the right direction for content creators to kind of fight back. We've seen like the situation with like Tasha K and Cardi B play out. You know what I mean? I do believe in my mind, like, you might be a pioneer in this scenario right here, where the actual content creator whose page got flagged and taken down is actually the person behind the lawsuit. Has like Whack 100 or Seti Nash or any of them, have they reached out to you since you filed the lawsuit?
Since I filed, the only person I talked to is Whack. Of course, 1090 Jake spoke on the lawsuit, but again, his thing is he wants to avoid the conversation as much as possible, because the information that I put out on him is information that people never knew. They never heard. So he don't want to really, all he's saying is, hey, dude is suing me. Whack, on the other hand, he called me. I think you might have heard the call by now, but he called me, and it's like 3 or 4 times he didn't try to talk, I say negotiate. And I just gave him some basic terms of what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do, what I accept. He said no to that. From that point on, I really ain't even trying to talk to nobody. I did document all of the messages and stuff that he been sending me, as far as you got to serve me and how you gonna serve me, shit like that. Because if it come down to it, I'm gonna apply to have him served, in another manner other than sending somebody to his door. I'm gonna try service through a different process. But other than that, I ain't even really trying to speak to them unless they trying to, comply with what's already been laid out, because everybody was given, I told Jake, hey man, you want to, we can resolve this. Just give me a retraction on the information you put out that was false. Take the video down, none of them want to do that. He don't want to do that, because then that would be basically admitting that everything I said about him was true. You see, nobody talking countersuits for defamation or even initiated a lawsuit process for defamation, because the shit I'm putting out is true. And I'm smart enough to know too that even if I use a police report, I still need to use the word alleged, allegedly, because the shit that's in the police report is just a report. That's not actual facts. Nobody was convicted of that. You know, so it's just one side of the information.
Right.
I think I do pretty good with making sure I be factual. If it's something I don't know, bro, I say I don't know. This is just my opinion on it. On the flip side of that, they so upset about the information I put out. For example, 1090 Jake, you got all these prison stories. You know, you talk about.
Hold on, Byron. Before you get there, hey, Mr. Perkins, I know you got to cut out. We finna get into the gossipy, messy shit. We don't want you to rub the smut.
Yeah, no, for sure. Look, he was over there soaking it up too. He was getting in it.
Go on, hit on, Mr. Perkins. Have a good night, brother. God bless you.
Appreciate you, Mr. Perkins.
Appreciate you,
All right,
bro.
I'm gonna watch the reels tomorrow.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. It was a pleasure to meet you, man. It's definitely a pleasure to meet you, man.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking later.
Yeah.
All right. Salute. Todd R. Perkins is in the building, man. Hey, listen, we finna get to the mud now.
Free him up. Let him go.
Free him up. Hey, listen, Ruler Gang. I'm gonna just sit back and observe this shit. Let me get me something to drink. Let me get me some Hennessy, some hen dog. I'll be right back. I'm gonna give me some hen dog. Y'all, come on, start to kick it off.
Go ahead. You was talking about
so 1090, right? Originally, I dropped the grievance, you know, and the main thing was a lot of people weren't as receptive to that because they looked at it just as a general grievance. People like, okay, a grievance, I ain't gonna say that's snitching. It's a grievance, you know, but, you know, I'm of the mind it's not what is written on, it's what's written in it. So it started with that. But as we started, you know, as I started covering it more, I started to see a lot of discrepancies and stuff that he was saying. And eventually I found his movement history. And his movement history show, this dude got stories about all types of violent stuff, right? But the movement history show, he only did 8 days. 8 days, bro. Anybody who done time before, you know, 8 days.
Bro? 8 days. Who was this dude?
1090 Jake.
Okay.
He did prison videos and stuff.
He got to the facility. He went to orientation for 2 weeks. They sent him to the main compound for 3 days. After that, they moved him to the work camp. He stayed at the work camp for months. Something happened there. They put him back on the main compound for 5 days. In that 5 days, he got assaulted. He went to the hole. He never came back out. So a total of 8 days, you was really in the mix of the type of, you know, environment that you talk about in your videos. These are things that he don't, if you notice, I say this a lot, but if you notice, if you go through 1090 Jake's page, you cannot find a police report at all. He's never shown you the police report from his case. He pull up everybody else's police reports. He's never, it's always a motion or something along those lines, because the actual police report from his case, it shows you that his family is the ones who cooperated. You know how we talk about snitching, how the streets perceive it? Well, in the streets, if I'm a gang member and me and you go on a mission together and neither of us get caught, but your family suspect that we did it and they tell on you and me,
right?
You the snitch.
Yeah.
If you can't stop your family from snitching on me, you the snitch. It's that, especially if you still communicating with them. If they snitching on me and you still calling and talking to them, and you know you gonna get that label. That's just how the streets work. So for him to come out and be the person that's calling everybody snitches and exposing people when you know you got this type of shit in your background, you know, that was the motivation for what I was doing. And I think that that's a part of the reason why he's silent on the topic. People been hitting me up like, man, I ain't heard from him in like a month. It's been about 3 weeks. He traveling around. He also got some other legal shit going on. You know, he in some trouble with the IRS right now. He down like 100,000 in tax money. He owed taxes like 100,000.
Not paying them taxes on that monetization money?
Not paying them taxes on that YouTube. He ain't paid. He didn't pay 23. He didn't pay 24. We don't know about 25, but I'm pretty sure if he ain't paid that shit, you know what I'm saying? So and I know this because they putting liens on his property.
Damn.
You know? So this is the type of shit he don't want. He don't want to magnify and go back and forth in a legal. So, you know, he did what he did. He dropped a video, which I feel like was designed to just try to destroy my credibility. He accused me of some of the most egregious shit you could put on somebody, a street nigga. You know, this nigga said I went in the house and put a gun to a baby head. You know, in today's times, people gonna look at that shit and be like, nah, don't fuck with dude. Yeah.
That's wild.
But in reality,
with no
it's a police
paperwork.
report. It's a police report. It's an accusation. But if you look at the final disposition, I was never convicted of that.
Okay.
You know, I only did 54 days on that case. Now, you know, like I know, a home invasion where they saying you had an AK and you put a gun to a baby head and shit, you ain't getting out in 54 days. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't no substance to that shit, bro.
Let me ask you a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You did a home, let's say, so the theory. So you get, so listen.
You gotta frame it.
No. I ain't gonna frame shit.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say some mark this.
Right.
If I do a home invasion with a chopper, I'm not coming in there for no kids to begin with. If I do it, right?
Yeah.
But when I get in there,
get that shit up.
Hold on. If I'm doing a home invasion, or I'm robbing. Is it supposed to be robbery?
Yeah.
Oh, once I get up in that, listen. Once I come through that door, and I know you got something, some keys, some money, some good dope, right? Once I come in that motherfucking door, I don't give a fuck what I gotta do to get you to get that motherfucking bread up. I don't know why all these motherfucking police ass niggas be like, oh, I can't believe you put no gun to baby head. I'm gonna put a gun to your, if putting that gun to your baby head gonna make you kick that motherfucking, I came in there for business. So if the only way I can get you to give me what I know you got is me to put a gun to your baby head, I think I might put a gun to your baby head. I'm just telling you the truth.
You already know that motherfucker gun to your head and your grandma, your motherfucking granddad in a wheelchair, bitch. Whatever make your ass move.
If I come in there, I know you got it, and I know it's in here, and you like
make you move.
Oh,
you half stepping if you don't come like that though. You half stepping.
I want to frame what I'm about to say. What I just said. I come in that house. Oh, nigga, it's up. Once I come in that door, once I rule report, I know you're saying Dawgface, don't say that. But I'm telling you, rule report. Once I come in that house.
You can't half step.
Listen, now, Ruler, I'm an armed robber by trade. You hear me? Ruler, I promise you on everything I love. Once I come in that house, I know that shit in there, and you try to dump, and I know what's in there, and you got an old lady, listen, I grew up watching mob movies and shit. I'm going to get I'm gonna take your
cut the finger off.
No, yeah. And I ain't got time to be playing with you because you kind of tough. You grown. So I'm gonna go where your weakness is. Mm-hmm. So if that mean that baby, I ain't advocating no, but I'm just telling you kind of robber I am. Once I come in that house, ain't nobody no human being to me when I come in that house. Everybody is a victim if I don't get what I want. Now, if I get what I want, I'm leaving. I ain't trying to do it, but goddamn it, I'm gonna tell you.
You ain't got long to comply.
When I come in that motherfucker house and stick up, you ain't got long
to comply. Hell no.
You don't have long to give me what I ain't got time. The longer I'm in there, the most subject to get arrested I am. Byron Blake, I said, if I run up in your house tonight, and I know you got some work and some money in there that I want, and your son, you got son?
Yeah, for sure.
Your son in
Oh,
that
I
house.
know the game. I know the game. Shit.
I'm saying this because I can't believe I ain't saying you don't strike me as the kind of brother that be on that kind of tip. I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
Once I come in that house, it's on the floor.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that was my argument. That was my argument with the way it was presented, because that's what shows me you had malicious intent. You couldn't find no paperwork of me telling on nobody. You know, the normal little shit that they pull on people. You know, you get to talking and they go, oh, well, look at this. He made us. They couldn't find not a trait. I told you, even with my brother, I told them, if I got to say that shit, I ain't going. And he was with me. Bro was ready. He was going to go. It's my little brother. He going to go with whatever the plan is I say. But I'm still just like, no, I ain't saying that. So once they realized they couldn't do that, then it became a game of how can we discredit him? How can we make him look so bad? And that's where I knew they not real street niggas, because the street niggas know once a motherfucker come in that door, man, give it up.
Ain't no rules.
And once I get in there,
I know it sounds horrible, right? Yeah. Hey, Dawgface. Hey,
it don't sound horrible.
No, but it don't sound. It only sounds horrible to a nigga who L7. Because if me and you was listen, if me and you are sparring on YouTube or on Instagram, and somebody say, "Hey man, Dawgface, guess what? We gonna call you BB. BB ran up in the motherfucking house and put the gun to the baby here and say, bitch, where that dope at?" I'm like, shit. I would have did the same thing. I wouldn't think to take that and try to use it against you like that's some horrible ass shit.
Yeah, no, that's how I know that you ain't did all this shit you talking about. 1090 Jake went to prison for robbing his own family. That's what he went to prison. He went and broke in his uncle's house and with some of his homies and stole the guns. The uncle said, if anybody would do this to me, it'll be Jake. The police contacted the auntie and said, this is the description we got. Do you know anything? She told on all of the homies who car it was, what time he come pick Jake up, all of that shit. You see what I'm saying?
So these was 1090 Jake's boys that
these was his homies. Okay. Yeah, these was his homies. And that's why I said, in my mind, that make you the snitch. You know what I'm saying? If you allow your family to go in here and just snitch on you in the county writing home saying, man, I'm sorry. I was high. I was trying to get high, or whatever you saying to them, you pleading your case. Meanwhile, they pushing for your co-defendants to be prosecuted to the utmost extent of the law and claiming that you just got caught up with the wrong people. That's some police shit. You know what I'm saying? And so for you to be the face of determining who the police and who ain't, you know, that made a lot of these niggas questionable to me.
Let me ask you a question, Byron. How did you get into conflict with? So who you have conflict with? Let me write this down, because goddamn it, you worse than me. Right here. Who my pen right here. Who you got?
Man, the shit started with 16 shot him, man.
Don't know him, but I'm writing him
That's
down.
who it started with.
Where 16 shot him from? Chicago?
Yeah.
16 shot him. Okay.
It started with 16 shot him. Once
that's a gangster name. That's a gangster name. Because you six, I'm assuming that means shot six.
That nigga's a cameraman.
It's a camera.
Okay, I guess he's okay. Who next?
Yeah.
Who next?
Yeah, so it started with him. From there, it went to 1090J.
And how did you and Jake's situation erupt?
A homeboy of mine had booked Boston Richie.
Yes.
He booked Boston Richie, and this when Jake was on his Boston Richie campaign. So
he was a rat.
Yeah. This when he was on his Boston Richie campaign. So somehow, you know, I guess the flyer come across, you know, his profile, or, you know, maybe he was stalking Boston Richie, because it seemed like when he was dropping shit on people, he was actually trying to gauge the public response and see how people cut them off, or if he fucked up their bag or whatever. Long story short, he ended up on this post where he arguing with my homie who involved in the booking, basically like, y'all booking rats. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Him and the homie get to going back and forth. You know, the homie saying, man, you trying to fuck up my bag, you know, go somewhere else with that shit. and it turned into a debate. He get in the homie YouTube and get to talking about how solid niggas is and niggas ain't. And I said, you know what? I'm finna just look into dude shit because he getting so comfortable and you know what I mean? He got to be confident to even come, you know, not just expose the nigga, but you targeting other niggas who still fucking with him. So I found the grievance first. And when I found the grievance, you know, I applied the same logic that they applying right now. You got this shit, whether it's a grievance or whatever it is, you wrote this man's name in it and said that he assaulted you and he attacked you. In my book, that shit don't fly in prison. If you get into a fight, everybody been to prison. No, even if you don't fight back, your ass still going to the hole. You just still going to the hole. So, if you a gang member, was I breaking up?
Yeah, go ahead, though.
All right, yeah. If you a gang member and you consider yourself a gang member and you know you actually get caught up in the middle of some gang activity, whether you did the shit or not, they take you to the hole, bro. Go do your little couple days in the hole. And you know what I'm saying? According to Jake, one of the Zoes hit one of the Bloods. One of the Bloods hit one of the Zoes, and the Zoes retaliated by attacking Jake instead of attacking the other dude. That shit is warfare. You know what I'm saying? You get to go and be like, oh, I ain't do nothing else. You know what I do? You get I was already on this trail. More to
He in the Matrix.
Yeah, he got to pay that AT&T bill.
You in the Matrix?
No, he just in the Matrix. It probably slowed down.
Yeah, it's on me. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That motherfucker Metro PCS. You get Metro PCS St. Louis?
Yeah, you funny as hell. T-Mobile. Hey, but yeah, so as I look through the history and the paperwork, I started to see like, damn, this dude it's no way, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like 8 days ain't enough time for you to slit somebody's throat, get stabbed up, your homie stabbed somebody else up, you engaged in a war with 3 different gangs. 8 days is not enough time for you to do all that shit, you know? And after the 1090 Jake shit started to, you know, gain legs, I started seeing guys like Seti Nash and other people who trying to get close to 1090 Jake start to try to negate the shit that I was putting out. You know, it was subtle, it was a slick way, but it's always I put out something and then they'll come with something that's contradictory to what I'm putting out. They wouldn't say my name, but I could tell your intent is to discredit what I put out. And then I looked at his shit and I started noticing, damn, most of the people who doing this, they all are the same type of person. They you know, they all engage in similar, the main 2 niggas, 1090 Jake and Seti Nash, that's running around here pulling paperwork on people. You niggas got bad paperwork, you know, and that shit went on for like 2 or 3 years, you know. It was going on, the little back and forth or whatever you want to call it. It was going on for a while. Jake was upset at how many videos I made. But if you got 900 videos, nigga, and I got to break these videos down, it might take me 100 videos. You know what I mean? Because you got 1,000 of these motherfuckers.
So we got 16 shot on 1090 Jake. We got Shelly Nash. Who else we got on this list?
And Wackesha.
So listen.
Because he became damn near like the ringleader for them. You know, it's
okay,
like
watch this. So listen. We're gonna do a trade. I'll trade you. I'll give you 16 shot on 1090 Jake and say Nash, and you give me no. I'll give you Wack. I'll trade you Wack 100 for Seti 1090 Jake and 16 shot him, because in my mind, Wack 100 and what he's doing on social media and on YouTube, in the YouTube streets, it is quantitatively more detrimental. Wack
Yeah.
100.
I was gonna say damaging, but detrimental is a good word too.
I don't even put 1090 Jake in 1090 Jake Shetty. I don't
Yeah,
even know.
he a joke. Yeah, Jake a
know.
joke.
I don't put 1090 Jake and Shetty Nash in the same category with Wack, because whether you like what they do or not, they typically try to, like, I seen people send 1090 Jake, and I'm not justifying anything for him, but I seen people send 1090 Jake paperwork on people, and 1090 Jake like, that ain't it. Let me go get the whole thing.
Yeah. But see, my thing with that is, right, he's gotten so comfortable in his position that he feels like he's the end all be all with that. So whether or not his response to certain situations is not always objective. You know what I'm saying? It's always.
You think he got jaded because do you think he got jaded, or you think his ego, because he knows the impact that he has, you think his ego is in play versus
yeah. I've heard him say, for example, the BG situation, right? He said that the guy who was claiming that BG told on him was reaching out to him. He said he said dude was reaching out to him, and you know, once he looked at it, he didn't feel like BG was a snitch, you know, because dude, this is what you signed up for. You know what I'm saying? He actually said that once dude reached out to him and he knew the story was gonna break, he said, I decided to hurry up and drop so I can control this narrative. So, like you're saying, his ego is so big that he feels like he has the power to control narratives about whether or not a person is a snitch or not, you know? And really, you really don't even have the qualifications to participate in the conversation. But he feel, and guess what? Now that he been hanging with 6ix9ine and he being called out for hanging with 6ix9ine, guess who he calling the snitch now? BG. Now he's saying, oh, well, shit, y'all ain't saying nothing about me hanging with BG. And he went to the grand jury and testified. Well, you ain't have a problem with that when you was so-called trying to control the narrative, you know? But now that it hasn't, and I think that was because he was cool with Boosie at the time, and Boosie and BG was cool. And once Vlad and Boosie fell out, then now he don't care about Boosie no more. So now he can say, oh, well, fuck BG, he a snitch. You know, but I take a lot of pride in one thing you would never hear me do is call a nigga a snitch and then turn around and say, no, I had it wrong. He ain't snitch. You know, because my view on that shit is what it is. If you told, you told. If I feel like it's telling to me. That's how I'm coming. You know, I ain't gonna double back and say no, because that's my integrity and my manhood on the line. You know what I mean? Like, nigga, no, if I called you a rat, I ain't gonna come back, because I know I'm not even gonna jump out there and speak and say somebody a rat if I don't feel that way or if I don't have all the facts.
Yep,
you know,
that part right there.
If I don't feel like I got enough information in front of me to make a determination, I'm gonna say, nah, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't say it.
Yeah, and once I say it, that's how I feel. So, you know, Jake and Seti, they not on the same level as Wack. Wack is a real Wack, but don't get me wrong. Jake is responsible, and I say this on the record because I know this to be fact. Jake is responsible for at least 3 federal indictments in the state of Florida. And 2 of them for sure came to the Bloods. It was the Bloods that got indicted. When he went on the news and did that news clip, less than 2 weeks after that, they shook down a gang of prisons down there. They found a bunch of phones. Them phones had information in them. They arrested over 30-some officers. He got by because he always said no officers got arrested and people couldn't actually get paperwork. Once I started digging and I found all of that shit, dude is basically, you know, I ain't gonna say basically, he an informant. 1090 Jake is an informant just like Wack. The difference is Wax is on a greater level because Wack is a part of a different type of program. Wack is part of that program where they actually, you know, they use these people in these media stances to gather intel and information. He not getting everything that Wack say on this internet. they keeping track of that shit. And eventually it's going to come to the point where you're going to have to be willing to openly come to court and stand on some of this shit so you can help us close this case, which I think is going to be the issue in Big U case.
Okay, with that being said, what's your thoughts on, the paperwork from the superseding indictment on Big U?
It exposes Wack. Because this is the thing, right? Wack is on a phone call, and my lawsuit mentions this. And I think if you look at the timing of the lawsuits as well as the timing of the superseding indictment and the fact that they include information from him, it kind of is spooky for real. But my lawsuit alleges that part of what justifies me calling Wack an informant is the fact that he participated in a conversation with victim one, who we know is Big Dale Morrison, however you want to put it. He participated in this conversation with him. Loose Cannon also participated in that conversation. Loose Cannon is a defendant on this case. Wack is on the internet admitting to orchestrating this phone call. If you orchestrated this call, you either orchestrated it for Loose Cannon, which would mean you was aiding and abetting this defendant in this witness tampering, or you orchestrated it for Big Dale, which would mean that you was colluding with this alleged victim to frame these defendants.
Hey,
somehow,
Byron, if I can, I want to play something for you if I can.
All right.
Remember, Wack 100 told us a story about, ask Future, like me and Big U ran into him and Sierra at LAX, and he had.
Let me stop it right there. He says, "Do you remember Wack 100 told us the story about what happened when he saw Future and Sierra?" So people, Wack 100 bitch ass, now that he's in that indictment for show, Wack 100 is acting like he don't know where this motherfucking charge in this indictment came from. He act like he don't know where this overt act number 38 on the overall on the superseding indictment, overt act number 38. It talks about this same story verbatim. I want y'all to pay attention to something. Future has never acknowledged or told this story. Trick has never told this story. Big U, once he heard that Wack had said this, Big U said that it was not true. Birdman has never acknowledged or told this story. Sierra has never. So you have Wack 100, and Wack 100, he names Big U.
Yeah. Wack is most definitely the source of information for that.
Whoa. Hold on. I gotta check this bitch right quick. Hey, Tommy Antoine, tell your mama I said eat a dick. Your mama and everybody who look like your mama, you bitch ass nigga. I'll stick my finger in your mama ass. We're sorry, funky pussy ass, you bitch ass nigga. Now, I'm finna block your bitch ass so you can go play in your mama asshole, you bitch ass nigga. Bye. All right, so I ain't done yet. Hold on. Trick, Sierra, and Birdman. He named 4 people. None of those 4 people have ever acknowledged or have ever repeated what he said took place in LAX that fateful day. Nobody. The only person who's ever told this story is Wack 100. Now listen to academics acknowledge that he told the story.
Wack 100 told us the story about, ask Future, like me and Big U ran into him and Sierra.
He didn't tell him this story in private. He told this story out loud, aloud on Clubhouse. He also repeated this story wherever he could. Just the same shit that Loose Cannon be doing. Loose Cannon is in prison, or is in the federal holding facility right now because he talked himself into Big U's federal indictment. Loose Cannon wasn't even around when the things that Big U was being charged or being accused of doing, he wasn't even around. when these things were happening. He came later when Big U was already in full stride with busting the moves that they say he was busting, the moves he said he was busting. So Loose Cannon injected himself into the situation, and he got himself indicted because he told stories of criminal activity that he was involved in that had something to do with that was orchestrated by Big U.
At LAX, and he had owed Trick some money. I chased.
Wack told the story about owing Trick some money. Nobody else told this story. I need y'all to pay a fucking attention here. Watch this.
Wack 100 told us a story about, listen, Ask Future, like me and Big U ran into him and Sierra at LAX, and he had owed Trick some money. I chased Future, and Future was running from me through the whole thing, and I chased him onto the jet bridge. That's got to be a lie. That story sounds so much as a lie. Well, the feds have now put that story in Big U's indictment.
Stop right there. The feds have now put that story that Wack 100 told into Big U's indictment. I'm gonna ask y'all a question. I want y'all to tell me if I'm lying. Jump in the dog. My chat's called a dog pound. Jump in the dog pound. When have you ever heard Trick tell a story? Because these questions I'm gonna ask you, they go to how you think the feds found out. I'm gonna ask y'all questions that I already know the answer to, but we gotta play games like this. You know how they be. Watch this. Excuse me, I'm chewing mamas. Got my goddamn blood pressure up. I'm gonna name some names. You tell me which one of these people whose name I say have you ever heard talk about what happened in LAX between Wack 100, Big U, Future, Trick, and Birdman and Sierra? 5 people. Have you ever heard Trick come on any platform? And I know Trick. I know the whole goddamn family, respectfully. When have you ever heard Trick tell the story about, and if you have, send me the link, I'll pull it up. When have you ever heard Trick say anything about what happened in LAX between Birdman, Wack 100, Sierra, Future, and Big U? When have you ever heard Trick say anything about this situation? When you ever heard him acknowledge it? Because he definitely heard what Wack said. You've never heard Trick even acknowledge that what Wack was saying was true or not true.
I haven't heard from any of them. I haven't heard from any of them.
Denied it ever happened.
Dawgface.
Birdman never spoke on it. Sierra never spoke on it.
Yeah, Byron was saying. What you say, Byron?
I said I never heard none of them speak on it. The only account I've ever heard of it comes from Dude, and we know if we look at the very first indictment, you see that they using Wack's words, you know what I mean? That they feel like it's credible. In order for them to even include you in the indictment, bro, they have to feel like what you're saying is credible, So it's he tried to I've listened to him on Clubhouse, and he tried to say, well, if they know that and they know about the club, that had to come from Bear Claw or from Hot. Like trying to say somebody close to him had to say this. But if you look at the just like you played that clip, if you look at some of the other clips, you can actually find clips of Wack arguing with people where dude is saying, okay, why didn't this make the news? So none of this shit made the news. And Wack is saying, no, go look up where Future got attacked about the 6 in the club. And you know, the same details you saying had to come from somebody in his circle. You discussing all of this shit on the internet.
Yeah.
They called you about the Jay Prince situation. That was something that happened on the internet. So we see a pattern of you discussing topics on the internet and then making it to somebody in the FBI's desk, whether it's, you know, a handler or an investigator, whoever it is. Every time you talk about something on the internet, the FBI getting up. So with that said, once you knowingly continue to do this type of shit, now, bro, it's no question. You telling. You know what you doing. If I know the feds is sitting on these niggas' corner over here watching them, I'm not gonna keep going over there every day trying to catch some of their customers and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm cool. But every day you get on here and discuss crimes and situations that you say is criminal shit, and you talk about how people did it and what you did, and I really think the government is getting to the point where it's like, okay, they gonna force his hand. Like I was saying with the big deal shit, you either gonna be a witness for the government or you gonna be a defendant. That's why they use the language co-conspirator in this new indictment, because you either gonna be a co-conspirator and get added to the next superseding indictment, or you gonna come on in here and talk to us and confirm this shit, because otherwise you doing too much shit that's detrimental to the case.
Yeah,
You orchestrating phone calls with the victim and the defendants. That's either witness tampering or it's colluding. If Big U attorney decide they want to bring in this phone call and play it for the jury, and the jury hear Big Dale laughing with loose cannon when they talking about the robbery, how likely are they to believe that this was a real robbery? I wouldn't buy this shit. You know what I'm saying? If I hear you on here talking to this dude and y'all talking about blaming everything on this other person, and then y'all laughing about this supposed robbery, I'm gonna be like, no, I don't know if I want to give a nigga life over that, you know, because it's too shaky. But on the other hand, shit, if Loose Cannon was the one who wanted to make the call, then you admitting to tampering with the witness, because the government has to do this. If Big U lawyer bring up that call, the government, the only way they can defend themselves from that is say, well, our witness was being pressured. He was under pressure. You know, he was coerced. He was afraid. And if they take that angle, then that means Wack is a party to that. If they don't take that angle, and they just allow this to come in, then that means Wack helped destroy the credibility of their witness. So you involved in the case, you too entrenched in the case, you helping them get charges, and you help you on the record saying you told Big U they was coming so he could get away.
So by all the stuff that he done said, you know, even going back to like the stuff about the grid program stuff, the Rayshawn Williams murder, up until like the dispensary robbery where Loose Cannon came and talked about that. You basically, what you're saying is all of that stuff, either it affected the case one way or another, regardless of how he tries to spin it.
Yeah. And that's why you see so much of him now saying, oh no, I ain't say that. I would, because he's realizing they not just see, to him, it's the content game. It's content. We got the content. This shit has started to gain legs. It's getting closer to Big U's trial. And whether people want to acknowledge it or not, that case is falling apart. People want to keep trying to make it. If you look at where the case is now compared to where it was when it first hit, it's nowhere near the same perception. When it first happened, they was telling you Big U DNA was found. Right. You know what I'm saying? And now it's, no, we never said that. No, you did say that. You got on here and you said they found his DNA under that boy nails. And now that's turning out to not be true. They said left cell phone data put him at the scene. That's turning out to not be true. When you go to the Loose Cannon situation, now we finding out Big Dale was renting a house from Big U. You know what I'm saying? And it's a bunch of other details that people don't know and didn't know at the time that made the case look more serious than it is now. I always say the most serious thing that I see that may stick is the financial shit. You know, that's the one thing I see, and not that they was stealing money or embezzling money, but just the way he was transferring the money. It makes it look criminal. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, the rest of that shit is really circumstantial, and they jumped out there, I believe, based off the fact that Wack had put out so much misinformation, and that misinformation had gained legs so much. You got people who really feel like they have to choose between Nipsey Hussle or Big U. It's a lot of people that feel like that, and because people feel like that, they give credit to a lot of shit that Wack says about Big U. You got people who will hate Wack and won't listen to a word he say, but if it's about Big U, they tuning in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They
now,
tune
let me
in.
ask you, do you so going with, you know, the saying that, like, listen, the case isn't what they thought it was from the beginning. Because like you said, when it first came out, it was like, man, Big U was cooked. But now we're starting to see them, now they got this superseded indictment. And some of the things that we seen in these overt acts is based off of things, like you said, that came off of social media. So when I see this overt act, do you feel like that particular situation is going to be something that's going to be used in court if Big U goes to trial?
Yeah, hell yeah. They need it. See, this is the thing. Most of the shit in the indictment is fluff anyway. For example, they got in there that Big U said he was bigger than Nipsey Hussle. That's one of his overt acts. That's not a fucking crime. That's not a crime. I can get on here right now and say I'm bigger than anybody that's on this screen. That's not a crime. But they saying he said that to further his standing in the enterprise, and this shit don't even make sense. So to me, it's fluff, and they've gotten to the point where it's so much fluff, you know, that they have to. It's almost like a completely circumstantial case now. So now that this whole case is circumstantial and is built off assumptions and inferences, you're gonna need somebody to fill in the blanks. Wack is more than likely, I want to say it's a 99% chance he's gonna be subpoenaed to testify at this trial, because a lot of the information that they have stems from him. Even if it comes from somebody else, they learned about it through him. For example, the agent, they have a motion to suppress coming up, right? On this motion to suppress, the agent has to testify. He has to lay a foundation for the things that he put in the affidavit and why he believes them. So when we get to the specific part about him saying Big U was, his MO is to rob people and give them back some of the proceeds, you know, so they can continue working, and then he can have something else to rob them for later or whatever. When they lay that out, they use Wack's words to corroborate that. They use Wack's specific words when he said to Loose Cannon, you know why he gave dude the 40 back, right? It's because he wanted to keep, he was going to charge him 20 for getting it back. So basically Wack was saying Big U took the money from Loose Cannon them and gave it back to Dale so he could make Dale split it with him since he got it back for him. Now, in order for the agent to come in and testify to what Wack said, he's going to have to establish a credibility standard. He's going to have to establish a pattern for how he knew Wack's words to mean what they mean. Unless Wack is going to say, yeah, I talked to this agent and I told him this, then the agent is going to have to go through and say, well, I based this off of something that Wack 100 said. I believed it because Wack has a history of being with Big U and this and this. And then they're going to have to eventually bring Wack in, and he going to have to lay out that same shit that he laid out to them agents or whoever he talked to in the beginning to make them believe that, because they can't, if they put that in there without ever talking to Wack and establishing that he knows this and how he knows this, then that search warrant is dead.
Yeah.
Because you basically just made some shit up to get the warrant. That's in Big U's original complaint. If If a person comes in and use my words, like Mr. Perkins was just saying, the right to confrontation. You can't use this person's words to establish a character and a history and an MO for me, and I don't even have the right to confront you or this person about how you reached this conclusion. So right now it's just at the phase where the agent is, I believe the agent is going to expose it at this hearing. The hearing is like the 28th or some of this month. I believe we about to really find out how much talking he been doing to them, because that agent is going to have to lay out a foundation for how he knows that meant what he said it meant. And the only way I think he can do that is by saying, Wack told me this, or, you know, Wack divulged some type of information. But as far as what you was asking, that overt act, he's for sure gonna have to talk to somebody, whether it's because they trying to subpoena him or whatever. That overt act is important and central to Big U's case, because it establishes a history and a character of collecting money from people for not checking in. Other than that, what other instance do you have where Big U was, because they mentioned the check-in process and checking in podcast, but I don't recall seeing an example in there of somebody being forced to check in. They talked about the James Harden shit, but if you read Big U's indictment, it says from 2010 to 2025. He filed a motion and said, how are y'all saying I was running this enterprise from 2010 to 2025, but y'all don't have no allegations from 2010 to 2019 in here at all?
Right.
And so they needed this future situation, which to me was a reach. It told me that they don't have anything from that time frame other than that to put in there that involves checking in or somebody being extorted. So they added that in to fill in those blanks of that time frame. Once they get to the trial phase and they want to make this sound like it's been a long it's been going on since 2010. Now this overt act has to come up. Y'all have to bring this overt act up so y'all can establish something in that window from 2010 to 2019. Then you have to discuss, you know, the co-conspirators. Big U filed and said, I want to know who when it says I conspire with people known and unknown to the grand jury, I want to know who they are. Yeah. They declined to give him that information. But just a short while later, we see one of those people is Wack 100, because they says in the paperwork in the overt act, Big U and a co-conspirator. Who else do we know that was there? Nobody else has said I was there. I was involved in this. The only person
said it was just me and Big U.
Yeah, exactly.
At the airport.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how else do you get around that? They called you a co-conspirator. We know they have co-conspirators known and unknown to the grand jury. I'm convinced that Wack was one of those known. And if they got you as a co-conspirator in the indictment, they came and talked to you, bro. Loose Cannon admitted that he was talked to. If you listen to the call with Big Dale, Loose Cannon said they came and picked me up.
Yep.
Right after that shit, they came and picked me up.
That's why I was gonna tell Dawg about
and
some of the
they
stuff.
Asked me about. He said they asked me about Big U and they asked me about you. He was talking to Big Dale. My thing is, Loose Cannon, if you know they came and picked you up, and you know that they questioned you about this robbery with Big Dale, what the fuck did you go on No Jumper for and confess to the whole crime?
He might have already been working.
You already talked. There's no way you gonna go in there and talk about this on a podcast if you denied it to the feds. If I told them I didn't do it, it's no way I'm gonna go in here and say, yeah, we did this, and they think you could just go on a podcast and talk about that. Hell no. You know it's an active investigation. But at this point, you and Wack had been dealing. Y'all had already orchestrated phone calls with Big Deal, and this was part of the plan to go in and, damn, we hot. okay, let's just shift it all to Big U. And now that shit is coming out, and Wack is being tossed to the wolves, if you ask me. The Fed saying, okay, you've been playing the fence long enough. You either gonna come on out and be an informant and work for us, or we throwing you in the bunch with these niggas. Because they trying to get him to shut up. If he don't shut up soon, they not gonna have a case.
I mean, I know some people were saying like that phone call from the federal agents that he recorded was fake. We had somebody that was on the panel last week that said that they knew the voice of the woman and confirmed that that was a Fed. So in my mind, though, recording the federal agent talking like that and putting it out online, you would have had that pissed off the FBI by doing
and
that.
they mentioned it in the paperwork.
Yeah,
they mentioned it, and they said that we believe that if we release this information or we conduct this investigation like this, that the information will be leaked. You know, now think about this, bro. If you leaking information and if you recorded a phone call with the FBI, an investigative phone call, and you put this shit out, why don't they bother you? If you pissing them off like this, why don't they bother you? You know, the only thing I see is because you still being of use to them.
yeah.
You know, if without Wack, they not able to amend this indictment and include this future claim. And if they not able to do that, then Big U would have probably been able to get the language struck from his indictment that says from 2010 to 2025. And it would have probably had to say from 2019 to 2025, you know? And then he arguing, well, shit, in 2025, I was locked up, and the last criminal thing y'all got from me was 2023. So that cut it down to 2019 to 2023. That time frame matters because now the relevant conduct y'all trying to put on me only goes for this. So if it's about drugs or whatever y'all come up with, the relevant conduct window is shortened. Wack is...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Let me play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
To me, in my thinking, by the way I think and the way I look at things, there's been so much evidence presented that establishes, in my mind, that Wack is indeed working in some capacity with law enforcement. And I believe that he has purposefully weaponized social media platforms like Clubhouse, Instagram, and then he crosses over to YouTube. And he has utilized the relationships that he's established with some of the most prominent people traversing the YouTube streets. And he has done so for the express purpose of trying to use their platforms to elevate his voice so that those who look into or investigate or are concerned with breaking laws being broken will gravitate towards that shit. And I believe, I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, because I thought of this, right? I believe that he uses these I believe that he's just, I believe in my heart that he is only broadcasting all this shit about Big U and whoever else so that he can muddy the waters. So that when it comes down to who done it, anybody could have done it. I ain't one talking about this. You are the only one. You're the first one. You're the first one to talk about it. And he starts an avalanche with the other YouTubers. He sends it to Poetic Flacco. He'll run it past Adam. He'll go, he hopefully he can get to academics and so he can spew that shit on academics. I believe that Wack 100 is trying to muddy the waters. I believe that's what he's doing. And I believe he's like Donald Trump. He's asking us not to believe what we see and what we hear and to know it. Listen, did you hear the clip when he went on Clubhouse and the guy who he had running the Clubhouse shit played the clip when he denied saying Stunner's name? Did you hear that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the guy played the clip on his own shit And then he said, oh, that's some police shit. You're saying that you never said Stunner's name. Why didn't you say that? Like, listen, why was it important for you to say that you never said Stunner's name?
Right.
Why was it important for you to say I never said Future's name?
Right.
Why was it important?
Because he know that that's some police shit.
Yeah, why was it important for you to say, I never said Trick's name? The only name that you're trying to move out the equation is Stunner. You know why? Because, listen, Academic said, well, let me get this pen. I'm a bad motherfucker when I get this pen, right? Academic said, hey, he tried to give him a way out. Hey, listen, Academic said, well, it's not a crime. Big U wasn't charged with the crime of extorting and threatening and Future. It's just an overt act that is listed.
That's part of the crime.
Hey, listen.
That's the legs to the body of the crime.
Yeah. An overt act is an accusation that links said event into an overall overarching conspiracy.
Yeah.
An overt act has to be answered to.
Yeah.
His lawyers have to
This is something that you did in furtherance of the original conspiracy's plan.
Hold on. I got you. Hold on. We have sound effects too. Effects. Listen, so Academics. I was so mad with Academics because he allowed this motherfucker to come on that platform and play games with America. And listen, I was there live when this was happening. The chat that he so loves and adores was tearing his ass up. And they were like, call Dawgface. But if you heard that clip, when you heard Axe's phone ringing, that was me calling in about 6-7 times. Right? There are too many instances. So watch this. In January of 2025, Wack 100 and Loose Cannon interviewed a guy who identified himself as a member of the Rolling 60 Crips. And this guy told the story while being interviewed by Wack and Loose Cannon that Big U hired them to steal a U-Haul truck full of $40,000 worth of Christmas toys from in front of his house. They asked him, well, how did you guys get the truck? He said, oh, Big U left the keys to the truck on the dashboard. Oh, well, how are you going to get paid? They asked the guy, and the guy said, well, we were going to get paid on the back end because once the truck got reported stolen, they're going to start a GoFundMe. And because it's a Christmas thing and because it's the plan on the emotions of the kids, then he was going to pay us on the back end. How much were you supposed to pay y'all? $20,000. They interviewed this guy, and they took the audio and put it on social media and put it on YouTube. Last time I checked, stealing a U-Haul truck by itself was car theft. And when you add the $40,000 worth of merchandise in the back of the motherfucker, it takes that to a grand theft auto like they fucking game, right? And then you're talking about a conspiracy to do this. So the Crip, the guy who identified himself as a Crip, when you say that you conspired with him, he left the keys on the dashboard, you stole the truck, and then you incorporated fraud because you're gonna initiate a GoFundMe fraudulently to pay for something or to get people to pay to get the public. You're defrauding the public to reimburse you for something that was never stole, and then you're going to take the toys that were in the truck that you still have, and you're going to fence them off somewhere, or you're going to just the whole point. You're just going to take the money, and then they don't even know that the toys that were in the truck are being brought back. That's one. Number two, he went on Adam's show, and he sat right next to Loose Cannon again, right? And he prodded and pushed Loose Cannon into telling a story about how Big U called him and told him somebody had just shot Nipsey Hussle dead. And Luke's like, 060 on set, on gang, on hood, with his retarded bitch ass, right? So he says that he called Nip because Nip is married to his cousin. His words, not mine. And he said Nip answered the phone. So like, oh, what's up, Nip? He was shocked that he answered the phone based on what Wack had just told him. And he says that he never called Wack back and said, man, you just gave me false information. He never said that he never told Nipsey that he just got a phone call from Big U. Yeah. Then he said a half hour later, he got a phone call saying Nip was dead, Nip was dead. So Wack asked him, what does that mean? What do you think that was about? He jumped the gun. He's saying that that's a murder plot because you're saying that he knew about the murder beforehand. Right. And you're saying he jumped the gun. You're putting a murder on him. Mm-hmm. And you went to social media and you went to YouTube with all this shit. I can name 5 other instances where
that's why I say that the Nipsey Hussle in the future shit, that's more like a marketing strategy from the feds, if you ask me. You know, they know that for one, Nip and Big U was kicking it after that. I get people be trying to find their different ways to, but this is the thing. If you gonna give a nigga his stripes, you gonna respect a nigga gangster, you gotta respect it. If you say Nip was a real nigga, he was then it's no way you could say, oh, he was getting extorted by Big U, that's why he still had him around. You see what I'm saying? If his brother came out and said, man, I done shot at these niggas to protect my brother and defend my brother, there's no way you could say, oh, well, you know, he only had Big U around because he was afraid because shit, they done already went at it with him. You know what I'm saying? So the Nipsey Hussle shit, like I was saying, it's not a crime to say you bigger than Nip, but they want the public to get so involved in this narrative that it's Big U versus Nipsey because that's what they using to attract eyes. Wack is a part of, if you ask me, they got this little program, right, for informants where they allow them to get out here and get involved in certain shit, even go that's so far as certain crimes. Yeah, certain crimes where they allow them to.
Whitey Bulger. Yeah. And then
facts.
There are
facts.
There are Hell's there are biker gangs, not hell, but there are 1% of biker gangs who have and listen, there are numerous mobsters and drug traffickers.
Greg Scarpa, shit. Greg Scarpa, he was a killer and an informant, and they knew he was killing
at the same time. I got a question.
I know.
I have a question for you guys, right? I have a question. Wack 100 has a problem with the Crip organization in total, all of it. When he's questioned and pressed about telling, and when they point out the fact that all this shit, it looks like you're telling. The first thing he say is on Pyru. Ain't no Pyru on Dawgcase. It's all Crips on Dawgcase. Ain't no Pyru shit. Mm-hmm. It's all Crips. He's pointing out that it's Crips that on the case telling, while at the same time simultaneously ignoring the fact that a couple of these motherfuckers are motherfuckers that he helped build up to a level where their voice would be heard, right? Why does the Crips, I don't care what set, why isn't there a nationwide order coming from the motherland of gangbanging? Why isn't there an understanding amongst, I know all Crips don't get along. I know the neighborhood don't get along with the rolling and maybe the gangsters don't get, I've had a crash course on what Crips, there are more Crips beefing with each other than there are Crips beefing with Bloods. I get it. But I think that Wack is taking advantage of the disenfranchisement of the Crips. And I think that he's using them against each other. So I'm confused as to why, when the Crips see Wack coming, is it that he picks the low-hanging fruit amongst them who are starstruck and want to be famous? So the allure of putting them on No Jumper and having them come on Clubhouse and exposure shit, is the allure of that greater than the warning that he presents when he tries to talk to you? I'm confused. Why don't the Crips like, dog, this nigga's bad news, it's no good?
Man, I couldn't say, man. I think Wack in general targets people who seeking opportunities. You know
But
what
he
I'm
got a thing.
saying?
He got a Byron. He got a thing for the Crips, bro. And I hear tell that his wife is soon to be ex-wife Kimberly, the one who has everything, the one that he's seeking spousal support from, the one who's the brain of that operation. And by the way, have you seen Kimberly, his soon to be ex-wife? Have you seen her?
No,
Very
I
beautiful,
never seen
very
her.
beautiful black woman, right? If you take Kimberly as she is, Wack's soon to be ex-wife, and if you put a picture of R&B after all this, there's a striking resemblance. I think that Wack is trying to build her into what his soon to be ex-wife is. Y'all saw her, bro? Ruler Report. You seen her?
Yeah, I didn't see her before.
Doesn't R&B after the surgeries remind you of her? Where's her Kimberly Ross official? Let me show you guys.
Yeah, he got a. I mean, you know, it's a type there.
A type is an understatement.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me show you this right here. Now you tell me, Byron. You tell me when you see this right here. You tell me, it's some strange shit going on over there, man. It's some strangery going on over there. You see this right here? Hold on, let me get rid of it. You see this? Look at this, bro. Well, I'm gonna show you something. Look at this. Hold on. Just I think that he's trying to, and even the hair. Look at this. Now, come on, bro. I think that he's trying to build a bear, respectfully. I think that he's trying to turn R&B into. He clearly understands this woman is the brains of the entire operation. What do you guys think? Is that a conspiracy theory on my part? What is that about?
You know, niggas be always trying to, maybe he trying to, what is called upgrade the older model. You know, you probably think, let me go get something younger, but still try to turn her into this. You know, and then maybe he feel like he can control, the assets and the shit a little more. If he's seeking spousal support, then we know who the breadwinner is. You know what I'm saying? We know who got the bag. But maybe he feeling like, man, if I can put her in that same position, then I can have that same bag, but control it also. You know? Man, that dude, he a piece of work. He a character for sure. But one thing I can say is that I've noticed here in the last 30 to 60 days, that shit is falling apart. That image is falling apart. The ability to deceive people is he's losing it because more people are being brought to the light. More people are starting to see the truth. And it's getting harder for him to hide because it's so much more emphasis being put on it. Like this situation with Future, a lot of people love Future. So you got to think when this shit hit, it comes down, okay, you getting charged with this overt act. Who the hell telling? It got to be Future, Sierra, Wack. You know what I mean? It's only so many people that's involved. We know it's not coming from Future, and the people gonna argue that it ain't coming from Future. The people Sierra got a fan base. Them women gonna come argue for her. You know,
and we know goddamn well Trick ain't finna acknowledge no motherfucking scheme.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Here, I have another question for you guys, if I may. So listen. Why is Academics, Poetic Flacco, Why are they helping to push the narrative that what we see and what we're hearing and what we are able to glean that is not true? Why?
Because if
They don't need him. They built platforms without him. So why?
No, it's like this, right? When we just had the attorney on here, one thing that I noticed is that he was arguing he was presenting his situation and his opinions from the perspective of a defense attorney, which I respect because you gotta take that route. You can't get on here and say, well, this is snitching, and then turn around and advise your client to do it. Your client who say he a street dude or he a real dude, you know what I mean? You can't turn around and say, yeah, well, look, go ahead and take that. You good. So, to do that would be to say he probably done had a client or two who done snitched if he was to acknowledge that. And I think it's the same with people like academics, right? If academics acknowledges what Wack is doing and has done with this case, then it put him in that same boat with the Lil Durk situation. Because a person would have the mind to think, okay, why the hell would you get Durk up here and ask him about sliding for Vine? Even though Durk had the right to not answer the question and could have skipped right over it, why would you get up on this podcast and ask him about it and then put it out? And if academics acknowledges that what Wack is doing is a form of open source reporting and feeding information to the feds, then it put him in that same boat. And they don't want to be in that boat. Even though we've seen the Trap Lord Ross, the little chart that he made about Young and Ace and Queso them, that shit made it to the trial. 1090 Jake, he was acting confused about why he was brought up in the YNW Melly trial, but the truth is you was brought up because you've been verifying everybody's blood credentials and you actually verified his, and they wanted to use that because they was trying to get him the death penalty and they needed the gang enhancement to do that. So these dudes all know that this shit get brought up in these cases, but they don't want to be known as informants or they don't want to be known as open source reporters, people who provide information or who collect information that law enforcement can later use. They don't want to be known as that. So they try to find a way where it's like, okay, he did this, but it wasn't like this. And it ain't no in between. That's why I think the streets and the internet mixing is one of the worst things to happen to the internet and the streets. Because so much of this shit, this conversation gets brought up so much, it go on so much. And it's always picking and choosing. It's always, like my man said, Underdog said, how the fuck y'all gonna be mad at me for coming up with a story that might get me out? You know what I'm saying? Like, how if I'm locked up and I got 30 years and I got a way that I could probably talk myself out of this shit, how can y'all be mad at me? On the flip side, you got people who gonna say, nigga, if you got that, even though all of the evidence was against T never get in the spotlight if you don't get out here running your mouth trying to be all flashy and shit. So it's so much of a debate. It's this side, it's that side. And by coming to the internet, it make for good content for people. We could have this conversation for 72 hours straight and we could bring up a bunch of different names and different, you know what I mean? We could run a marathon on this shit. Never run out.
Real Spill has a couple of questions for you. I'm not bringing anybody up tonight, but Real Spill, if you have a couple of questions for Byron or for anybody else on the panel, just put them in the comment section. They can see them. And if they would choose to answer them, they can answer them. Just put them in the comment section. Comment section rock tonight. This is DawgfaceTV. This is real life unfiltered. We have Byron Blake, we have Underdog, and we have the motherfucking chairman, the vice chancellor. Ruler Gang, Ruler Report, the building. For those who are asking questions, my phone's blown up. Where is part two? Where is part 2, part 3, part 4 of the James Harden deposition? Tomorrow, Ruler Gang, what time tomorrow are we dropping part 2 of the James Harden deposition? What time?
You know, we've been doing this like 8, 9 o'clock thing. I said we stick with the same time. I think people are getting used to seeing us at the same time. So
no, but you asked us to set you set the time, and then you get to smoking that motherfucker.
I was on time today though. I was here before we started.
No, you wasn't.
You said 9 o'clock.
I did say that too.
Yeah,
so what time tomorrow do we see James Harden deposition? Tomorrow, what time? Because if we don't listen, if we're not on time, it ain't my fault.
It's Underdog's fault.
I'm like Wack 100. It ain't my fault. One of them niggas' fault right there.
Yeah. I'll be here for sure.
This motherfucker like an hour early. I just be sitting there like, man, hey, he get tired. He leave me in this motherfucker by myself. I had to hang up and come back.
Hey, listen. Tomorrow we're doing part 2 of the James Harden deposition. It's going to be 3-4 parts of it. Tomorrow's part 2. No, it's going to be 3 parts of it. Tomorrow's part 2, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, Byron Blake. I'm going to give you the honor to take us out.
All right. Say less, man. You know, shout out to everybody. Shout out to Dawgface, Ruler Report, Underdog, man. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate y'all having me on, man. If y'all looking for me, make sure y'all hit me up on IG at official Byron Blake. I saw somebody in the comments said, how can I get another channel? According to YouTube, I gotta wait a year before I can reapply to have I can appear on other people's channels. And how diabolical is that Wack brought loose to No Jumper to confess crime to Big U and then started to manage him? Oh yeah, no, that's exactly what he did. But yeah, I can appear on other channels, but I can't have a channel that I'm operating and producing my own content. So if y'all looking to catch more of me, check out my IG, which is at official Byron Blake, or check out 618 Gaming and Entertainment Zone. They show a lot of love, repost a lot of my shit. You know, that's the best I can do right now.
You ain't going to Patreon?
Yeah, I do got a Patreon. I do got a Patreon too. Byron Blake. That's the name of the Patreon. Before we get out of here, I wanted to tell you this. It's called the Confidential Informant Review Committee. Look that up. The Confidential Informant Review Committee. Those are the guidelines that Wack is operating under right now. Look that up. It breaks down how they allow to use media, how they allow to participate in certain crimes and detail certain situations with I'm not gonna say immunity, but they not held accountable for it. You know what I mean? It's almost like they given a pass. In some instances, they even able to talk to these feds and say, hey, this is what's gonna be going on. I may have to play this role in order to get the intel that we looking for. I believe that that's where Wack was operating under prior to all of this complaints and shit. You know,
What do you know about the grid program in LA with the gangs?
Man, you from the Midwest, right? So yeah. I'm sure you done heard of Willie Lloyd before.
Yes,
and the ceasefire program.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah, I look at that like the same thing, man. You know what I'm saying? Willie Lloyd was under a lot of scrutiny because people was accusing him of still getting high with the ceasefire funds. You know what I'm saying? Saying you getting money from the government in the city and you still getting high, you know, and all different types of shit. What I will say is, if we look at the things that Wack said about the grid program originally, and if you really look at Big U's indictment, you will see that shit wasn't true. Because all of the shit that Wack was accusing Big U of doing with that grid program, he actually being charged for not doing. You know what I'm saying? The Big U got charges related to the grid program, not just embezzling money, but them saying he wasn't handing over certain documents and turning in certain documents to even make that a legitimate program. And if you look at the indictment itself, right? It say that from 2010 to 2025, he was doing this extortion and all of this shit. Man, y'all know the feds ain't finna be giving you no $500,000 contracts and all of that shit. You know, if they feel like you doing something wrong, you know. So a lot of what's been put out about the grid program is contradictory to what's really going on. I personally know some niggas that worked for the grid program, and I know them niggas ain't doing no telling. They ain't calling nobody on no phones. You know, I feel like the grid program was an opportunity for us to do what people always saying we should do, which is police our own community. Of course, they got some rules and some guidelines and some shit written into the contract, but you got to do that to make it legitimate. You know what I'm saying? If you trying to get funds from the city and all of this shit, you got to do that. But as far as actually enforcing that, I don't know of one single case that came out of Los Angeles or anywhere where a person said it was a grid program worker, or the investigation started with the grid program, or you know what I'm saying, that anybody that worked for the grid program provided information that led to their arrest. It seemed like the grid program was just like some ceasefire shit, and like we see in a lot of communities, you know what I'm saying? They gonna come out, they gonna talk to you. They got their little rules and standards that they supposed to operate by, but from what we see, that wasn't really what was going on. You know, nigga was just taking care of his community and policing his own community in the best way possible without doing all of the extra shit. I don't believe I think if Big U was providing information to law enforcement through that grid program, that this indictment wouldn't even exist. You know, it wouldn't even look at some of the shit that he getting, the extortion payments. Sometimes them was $500 payments. You know what I'm saying? A $500 extortion payment. I think that the public would benefit more from having a Big U out here who got access to damn near everybody in every hood and can give up all types of information. I think they would benefit more from him being on the streets than going to jail over a $500 extortion payment, you know, if he was providing information. So I don't think the grid program, I think it was something that Wack used, like he used the Cuffy shit, you know, the Cuffy paperwork. It was one of those things where if you can manipulate the narrative, people saw just that one line. Oh, they got BlackBerry phones and they got to call the police on them if something happened. People saw that and they like, damn, you know, Big U a snitch. He working with the police. But from what I know, nobody has ever been arrested and charged with a crime and said that the grid program is what led to it. Not to my knowledge, but yeah, look out that ruler report. Check out that confidential informant review committee. Check that.
I pulled it up.
Yeah. I seen you went straight to the phone when I said it. Man, check that out, because that's a real thing. And when you see what's being said in there and compare it to what's actually going on in real time on this internet, man, you will get a chance to see, you will get a more in-depth look at why I feel like I can say confidently that Wack is an informant. You know, it's a plethora of things, but that confidential informant review committee and that process that they take them through with screening them to even be a part of that, man, that dude, if he's not that, he finna get ready to get indicted. It's one of the two. You know, it's one of the two.
My general observation Wack 100 is he's just a bitch ass nigga. Period. Simple as that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Wack is a slime ball. The nigga called me. The nigga got my channel wiped, and then called me and said, "Man, I'm just trying to look out for you and put you on some game because I don't know if you got kids." Nigga, you should have been doing that. You should have thought about that shit before you went after my channel and all of that shit.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something, bro.
But you trying to manipulate your way into you know,
Let me tell,
some
let me tell you something, bro. Let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck about no monetization on nothing.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
gonna slang this bitch around like the okay. I'm Billy the Kid on these YouTube streets. I don't give a fuck, but I get it. But you know what? Listen, I'm stating here and right now. So motherfucker like, man, you said that you're gonna sue White civilly. You motherfucker right. You know why? Because these bitches, it ain't just Whack 100. It's whole ass niggas in Detroit like Al Nuke with club finger having ass. These niggas is actually cyber snitching, going at niggas' YouTube channels and Instagram pages, trying to take them to shut motherfuckers up, creating false narratives and chart and
yeah,
creating basically lying on the shit that motherfuckers doing. And YouTube is so sensitive that they falling for the shit and they letting the whole ass bitch ass niggas win. So when Baby Shooter made that video saying, "Oh yeah, we ain't shut you down enough. No, me and Wack, we gonna hit you where it hurt. What you love the most. Get your YouTube channel took, bitch." Then the dumbass nigga had never inbox me. I sent them inboxes right to my lawyer and right to Byron Blake.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm gonna put them to good use. I'm gonna put them to. You'll see him in the amended complaint with it. Like I say, a few other things that's definitely gonna work, you know, in our favor. This is something that definitely need to be done because there's a lot of fake news and shit that go around, and people need to know. Even if I can't get $10 million from you, I can get the truth out. I can get an injunction. This is how I know that these dudes really are who I say they are. Because even if you feel like I was broke and you couldn't get no money from me, you could still get an injunction from the court that say, hey, I need you to stop saying this, you know, or I need you to not say this, or I need you to recant this and correct it. You can still get injunctions, and none of them are going that route at all. Seti Nash told me he ain't worried about getting sued because it costs $100,000 to file a defamation suit. And that may be true for a nigga who don't know the law or who don't have, you know, certain types of resources. But for me, it's not gonna cost $100,000. So if that's what you was thinking, and you jumped out there thinking that I can say this or I can do this because he ain't got the money to go after me, then you mistaken. And that's the message that I want to send to the masses. You don't got to be rich to sue somebody for defamation. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta be legally versed to know how to start this process and initiate this process. And if you got the right case, you're gonna find somebody that's gonna be willing to jump on your shit for a cut of that money when it's all over with. You know?
Byron Blake, I appreciate you for joining us. You can come back anytime if you
Yeah,
need.
for sure.
I mean, this body, this august body, minus Henny. Henny's a part of this shit too. She's a female.
Shout out to
sniper.
Henny, man. Shout out to Henny.
Shout out to Henny. Shout out to the Henny gang as well. So listen, whenever we will lend you the platform whenever you need it. You hear me?
Yeah,
so
for
just
sure.
is what it is. Byron Blake, I want to thank you for your time. You're a scholar, you're a gentleman, and it is what it is. My name is Dawgface Calderon. I am the most dangerous voice on Instagram. I'm on DawgfaceTV podcast on YouTube, Dawgface Unleashed. I have other YouTube channels already ready and other Instagram pages already ready for the eventuality of them bitch ass niggas.
Hey man, that nigga Wack, man. That nigga lied. He has lied. I don't even think YouTube gonna believe him no more. That's why he's saying I'm gonna go after y'all channels in a couple of months because he done did so much of this shit and they getting served. I serve YouTube with some paperwork. But everybody getting served.
Did you get the shit Baby Shooter said to me? Did you get that?
Yeah. I got that. Yeah. And we gonna be definitely including that because this is the thing, man. You got somebody like Wack, bro, who has laid a blueprint for these other guys. Wack started off lying about his prison tenure. He started off saying he did 10 years in prison. Then he went down to 6. In reality, I think he might have did about 3 or 2 and some change, you know? But it was that laid the foundation for guys like 1090 Jake with, oh, I've been to prison, so I qualify to speak on this. And then it built up and it built up and it built up. And, you know, man, I'm on a quest to get these fake niggas out of here, man. all that faking and shit, all that propaganda. I'm on a quest to get that shit out of here, man. You know, that's that we can't even sell records.
Underdog, put your Instagram in the chat. I need everybody to go subscribe to Underdog page, man. He's the newest member of the YouTube streets, and he's trying to follow him. Underdog, spelled DAWG, Underdog _ podcast TV. Is that podcast TV? Yes or no, motherfucker? You don't seem too enthusiastic, motherfucker. What you saying?
Hey, no.
What's your Instagram?
I'm finna put it in the chat.
You can say it too. Oh, I forgot. You one of them motherfuckers can't walk with you bubblegum saying.
No, it's no, my
You tagged?
My YouTube is
You tagged?
My YouTube is my
Yeah, you tagged. Oh man.
My YouTube is Underdog TV, and my Instagram is Underdog TV _ podcast. So that's YouTube Underdog TV. You see me on there with the cane corso chewing down on the bone. That's on my YouTube, and my Instagram is Underdog TV _ podcast. Y'all lock in with me, man.
Rule report.
Hey, shout out to all the new members of the Ruler Gang. I see all y'all subscribing, man. I appreciate that. Shout out to the YouTube streets, Byron Blake and Underdog, man. And salute to the one nigga I had to put in time off for 20 minutes. Bitch, you ain't make it back on here. We about to close out.
Yeah. And listen, I have a surprise for you. So there was a group of disagreeable young gentlemen by the name, and they went by RTM, Related Through Money. It was a group of guys that T Grizzly grew up around and loosely associated with. But when they got indicted, T Grizzly got pulled in and questioned. When the indictment was released, and I have T Grizzly's deposition by the feds, and we're going to play that as well. So we're doing two things.
I definitely want to see that.
we get two things tomorrow. We're going to play part 2 of James Harden's deposition related to the Moses Malone case, and then we're going to play T Grizzly's deposition.
Because Wack put bad workout on T Grizzly too, right?
But you heard me destroy that nigga.
Yeah.
Nigga running.
And that nigga, he need to get sued for that shit too. Even though he broke. You see when Keefy D, when he went in front of the judge with the Keefy D shit, they said he was broke. They said he ain't had 100,000. He ain't had 100,000 in his account.
So watch this. Watch this. I have been trying to convince T Grizzly to sue Wack 100 and Baby Shooter on these grounds. One, it was actually Wack 100 who introduced 2 pieces of forged fake legal documentation. Yeah. And as we know, it's against the law to create legal documentation, right? And then they presented they disseminated, according to Wack, he said that he disseminated these paperwork to 15 podcasters and YouTubers for dissemination to a greater, more august body of people, right? Then he gave it to academics. Academics sent it to me. He put out a fake, fraudulent piece of legal document in the police report, supposedly written by Officer Hamilton, Detective Hamilton, and then he gave Wack 100. He gave academics a California State of Appeal motion for relief, claiming that it was a document proving that T Grizzly was a. Look at it. Look at it. Say. Let me give some light. Look at it. Say, shut your bitch ass up, dog. Hey, your bitch ass mama, shut up, you hoe ass nigga. Send me some pictures of your mama booty, you bitch ass nigga, you hoe ass nigga. I'm finna ban your bitch ass, you fuck boy. Send me some pictures of your mama asshole, bitch. Hairy asshole mama yours, bitch. Okay, back to what I was saying. I'm trying to convince T Grizzly to at least file civil litigation on Wack. He gonna win because he went on multiple platforms. He went on No Jumper, academics, and all this shit and causing a rat. And then he presented the paperwork, forged fake documents, saying that it proved T Grizzly was a rat. It was all forgeries. It was all false face.
I would just declare my name, shit. Just to have it on paper and have it established, a court order proving that that shit was fake. You know what I mean? Because you never know what situation you may find yourself in. I don't wish no jail on no nigga, but you might end up back in the jail where shit. How much money or none of that shit might not matter. You know, it might come down to whether or not these documents is real or fake. That's what it's about with me. I ain't even worried about the money for real. I want the money, but at the same time, nigga, it's about you saying that I put out fake shit. Because as long as my integrity is intact, I can rebuild a platform. You know what I mean? Once your integrity gone, man, you can't rebuild that shit. It's over with. You know, when I was in the joint, niggas used to always be trying to justify doing gay shit, saying, well, you know, I stopped before I went home or all types of. You can't undo that shit, man. Once it's done, it's done. You know, and that's how I feel. I'm that serious about what I put my name on and my integrity, man. You know, you known for putting out fake shit or bullshit, it's gonna follow you. That's why he in the city. Wack been exposed for so much lies and fake shit that he has to go so far to prove himself. And sometimes he get to talking too much and going too far. That's what we seeing right now with the future shit. He wanted so bad to prove that future shit happened, that even when Big U said it never happened, instead of leaving it alone, he went out of his way to try to prove how it happened, even saying, well, shit, I know other shit about Big U that I'll expose if he don't stop saying this ain't true. And now you done talked your way into a federal case. Shit. It is what it is. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all having me. I could go all night with y'all with this shit, man.
I got it, man. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Ruler game. We got two things tomorrow. We have part 2 of James Harden video deposition, and then we have part 1 of T Grizzly's deposition by the feds in the RTM indictment. Take us out, Ruler game.
Hey, make sure y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe, man. Go subscribe to Underdog TV. Subscribe to all the platforms on Instagram, Dawgface, Ruler Report, and Underdog on there, man. And we'll be back tomorrow with more heat, man. And for you bitch ass niggas, man, we on y'all's neck. Y'all see what it is. It's like when that motherfucker on the Marvel, he got all the rings and shit. You know what I'm saying? We about to fuck y'all up. I'm telling you, this is just the beginning.
Underdog.
Yo.
Talk, nigga.
I mean, y'all gotta follow me at that Underdog TV underscore podcast on my Instagram, and Underdog TV on my YouTube. Y'all gotta lock in with me, man. Get my ball rolling, baby.